just barely came up.
Yeah.
Oh, we're live.
Are we live?
Don't tell anybody, but I hit the go button.
Did you hit the go button? The go juice? We go boom, boom.
Everybody ready?
Go zoom, zoom.
You ready, zoom, zoom?
Pop, pop,
beep,
beep,
beep.
beep. Zoom, zoom. No? It's not a Mazda commercial? No, because it's Untitled Car Project.
I don't want you to go pop, pop, beeping because it pops in my ear.
That's where we get a pop filter.
Okay. All right. Everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, sir.
We're ready. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Untitled Car Project. I'm Rob Spring.
Jeremy Molt.
I'm Grant Gonzalez.
We're here today with Brendon Rasmussen. Did I say that right? Rasmussen?
Yep, that's it.
Nice.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Brandon reached out to us through Messenger, I think after seeing probably one of our posts on Facebook, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember what group it was in, but I did see it on
Yeah.
a local car group. Yeah.
Yep. I've been trying to post all kinds of groups until people are completely annoyed with it. But it seems to be working, it's gaining traction. I appreciate that.
Yay.
So, yeah, we're going to talk Subarus. We're going to talk Gambler. We're going to talk some drifting. We're going to hit on all kinds of car topics today.
I
Looking
heard
forward
in
to
the
it.
show note topics, we're talking about apocalypse cars.
It might come up. It's way down on the list, though.
But I'm
Way
so
down.
prepped for it.
I know. Almost to a fault. Okay, we'll do a little house cleaning off the top like we usually do. Let's see. I wanted to put this out there since we have at least 7 listeners, maybe 8.
We have proof there's one in the studio right now.
I know. Crazy, right? If any of our listeners have musical talent, I want to put it out there and see if any of them would be willing to build us a intro, outro music, a little bit, a couple of 30-second bites that we can use. Apparently the freeware that we're using now is expiring.
Yeah, I need to look into that.
Well, yeah, it's whatever. It is what it is. Anyway,
Free's not free anymore.
free's not free
I
anymore.
will put it out there, Rob. I have a beautiful singing voice, and Jeremy can attest to that.
We don't need words, just musical. If you want to do some beatboxing, maybe we'll talk.
Oh, we already talked before the show about beep, boop, bop.
All right. Anyway,
I'm
keep
done
in
with
mind
you.
we don't make any money on this show. This is all volunteer stuff. So if you want to do something for us and send it our way, reach out via Messenger or something. We're on all kinds of Facebook groups. And
Or
that
send it to
kind
our
of stuff.
Gmail.
Send it to our Gmail, untitledcarproject@gmail.com. Yeah, you could have the intro, outro music to our little tiny 8-listener show.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty awesome. I wanted to put that out there. There was something else. Apparently, I didn't make a note of it. Yeah. Oh, social media stuff. Looking at it right here. Bing! We started a Untitled Car Project group. If you want to be a part of that, hit us up on Untitled Car Project on Facebook. It's out there. Just posting our projects, your projects, trying to, bring a little more awareness to building projects and that kind of stuff. We've got several posters on there already, about 95 people in the group right now.
Mm-hmm.
About 240 some following our Facebook page, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, what you got, Grant?
No, I was going to say to follow our us also on top of the group, our actual page too.
Yes.
So make sure to click add and add when you're on
Add
Facebook.
an ad, yeah. And follow the podcast. That'd be pretty awesome. I think we only have like 50 some followers, but hey, better than 0.
Woo.
Things are growing. Appreciate the listens, appreciate the follows, all that stuff. So, how's everybody's week?
Fantastic.
Good.
Fantastic.
Loving the sun.
Only halfway through. Only halfway.
I had a productive week
Yeah,
with the air conditioner.
you did. We have permanent air conditioning.
I don't
now.
know if you noticed, but when you walked in, the deck looks a little bit different. We got that all sanded up.
Look really good.
Yeah.
I think I can actually hear that thing running, but we'll edit it out.
We'll edit it out.
Yeah,
That's fine.
it actually worked pretty good last week, so that's good. I sent out topics.
Yep.
We were expecting Brandon to be late. Brendon, I always say Brandon. I'm sorry,
You're good.
but that's okay. We can start off the top anyway. So, I wanted to talk about media influence on the car market.
Yep.
If you have any, I know Grant has something
got
to
thoughts.
say. Some thoughts. That's it. Some thoughts. How much does the media actually influence car market? Not just print media, TV media. Even like car manufacturers will host media events where these media people, social, whatever they call that. What do they call that? What's the word for that?
Like a social event? Like
my brain damage is kicking in. I can't think of the
like a test and drive event?
Yeah, they do that.
Like
Yeah. So it's these social media people come out and they drive cars. They actually some of them get to take the car for an extended test drive for a week or whatever.
An influencer event.
That's it. That's the word I was looking for. See, brain damage.
I have a friend down in Arizona that did a BMW one. I'd love to get him on at some point.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. I actually know somebody very closely that participates and works in those things.
You mean me?
Yeah.
No.
Hooray.
Not quite. Anyway, how much does that work? Like, those manufacturers spend a lot of money. Subaru is a big one, honestly. They spend a lot of money on those events. Does it work?
Yes. 100%.
How do you know that?
It worked on me.
Here's my...
Sold.
Here's the first, and it may end this discussion on argument on that. Paul Walker and the Supra. Oh, wait, no, Paul Walker didn't have a Supra. Anyways,
it was a movie.
He did, too.
Yeah.
He did? Okay, I haven't seen him, but...
That was movie.
Regardless.
It's still media, yeah.
Yeah, Fast and the Furious. We went from cars from the 90s that weren't really expensive, and the Supra's been the icon that's, gained popularity in then pop culture and exploded into $250,000 cars.
Yeah.
If that were the same, we'd have cars arguably with similar performances of the same era be catching up to that. Let's say from the early 90s, the early GTRs. They're still affordable. Granted, the late ones are, but they're also influenced by video games, by, like Need for Speed Underground. And then on top of that, they were in the Fast and Furious movies.
So, just for the record, Paul Walker drove both of those cars.
Okay. Again, I've never seen the Fast and Furious movies, and same with Rob.
Yeah, I've never seen.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole different, a major event when we do that.
That's going to be painful. So, have you seen them, Brendon?
Oh, yeah.
All of them?
There's
not like 28 of them or something.
Yeah, the last 15 I haven't seen.
The first 9 I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
They did jump the shark.
Okay.
Yeah,
they did jump the shark.
But
but when it turned into
going to the
war
moon?
Movies and away from the car scene, I mean,
it just got out of hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what the biggest thing of saying of like, look at what the car market has done once it's been movie. Or, here's an opposite one where it's Back to the Future. DeLoreans, I don't know what they were back then, but as those kids grow older and that movie went to the next,
100%.
like the 20th or 30th anniversary,
I'm one of them.
They exploded.
I should have bought one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you're very right about, like, the DeLorean's a great example. Okay, so our age group that, 1985, I was 15 years old, that was amazing, right? To see that car. And then as you get older, you're like, that car's still really cool. I would love to have one. You get into your mid-30s, you're like, I could probably afford one now. Didn't buy it, but, a lot of people did. And so that market, of course, those cars weren't made anymore, went through the roof.
Well, and did you guys see they were supposed to make an electric one coming?
We talked about that a while back. Yeah, about the resurgence of it and what the new car looks like and that kind of stuff. And DeLorean out of Texas, I think right?
Yep, Texas.
Yeah. Anyway, absolutely. We're a little bit off the topic, but it's relative because of media.
Yeah,
right.
It's anything that influenced you as a kid or growing up, or something that was in your face that was like when you think of that car, you remember that scene, you remember that moment, you remember that video, you remember that poster. Think of that. How many times do we have posters on the wall and we're like, "That's my dream car."
Oh, absolutely.
And that will affect you, may not in that moment, but maybe 10 years down the line when you're in the position to buy one, when you see one, when it goes through.
So, how much do you think? Subaru keeps coming to mind because it's close, right? You bought one.
I bought one. Okay, you want the story?
That's the WRX, right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a great story.
Yeah.
So, Dirtfish is actually sponsored by Subaru.
Yeah.
And every year they have to, or maybe not every year, but every couple of years they have to refresh their cars and, rebuild them. Yep. I actually went to a Dirtfish event. And after that event, I promptly sold whatever shitbox I was driving and bought my WRX.
Gotcha.
The intent was to turn that into an autocross and rallycross car. And then I, raced it for a year, promptly hurt myself, and sold it for the Tundra.
Yeah.
Which is now gone also.
So that's great examples. What other manufacturers
Ooh.
have that kind of pull, like Dirtfish that we're talking about?
Honda, I think. Maybe not in the same
in what
rally
type of
scene, but
well, that's okay. Rally scene. That's a live event. You're there, and yes, it paid for itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they sold more than just the one car.
Oh yeah, hundreds.
And that's why manufacturers go racing. But it wasn't necessarily their print or social media advertising that got you to buy that car. So these influencers that go to these events and they drive these cars and then they post on their whatever social media platform about driving and the experience and what they like and what they don't like. There's a lot of them out there. Actually wouldn't mind being one. It's a little much for me, but yeah. Does it work?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those do you know anybody maybe? Because I don't think any of us have paid attention to that social media and said, I need that car. Mm-hmm. Does that work?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not on social media enough to actually weigh in too much on that. Mm-hmm. I could just speaking from at least from a marketing perspective. If you look at what Volkswagen's done in recent years with that electric bus they brought back, and I'm sure that's the only way the word got out about that was just by posting it on social media. I haven't seen any advertisements for it otherwise.
No, right.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Volkswagen's kind of historically been.
All right, back at it. So technical difficulties. We everything froze up.
We just don't.
So we'll get back to it.
We don't mention the bus.
I don't think it's a bus.
We can mention the bus. We just can't look it up on our
the electric
computer.
Volkswagen bus is actually pretty cool looking. Did you see it all when that's supposed to come out?
I saw it in person.
I don't know anything about when that's supposed to come out.
I saw it in person. It was at this year's Portland Auto Show.
Oh,
it was actually really interesting.
Was it concept at that point?
No, they had two of them.
Well, that doesn't mean it's not concept.
True. I want to say they were functional. I don't know. I didn't have enough time.
Again, they can still be concept. Well, they bring those things to auto shows all the time before they're actually in production.
I would figure probably would be, but it wasn't because it wasn't roped off or anything. The public could have gone into it. And
Google machine.
We go. Jeremy, you do it.
All right. So back to topic, right? So talking about social media, selling cars. Does it work? You guys say yes, absolutely it does. I'm with Brendon a little bit. Does it really sell it to the guy that's just going to commute in it? I don't know.
See, that would be more. I would disagree. I would think it'd be the opposite. I think for the general public, I would think
more so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's kind of how Tesla got the footing that it did for the time that it did, and then the reason why it fell off as well.
That's valid because that's such a big tech industry. Silicon Valley.
Have you ever seen an advertisement of any kind for a Rivian?
No, never have.
But there's a lot of them cruising around.
Well, yeah.
And I think that's, again, social media, because that's the first place I saw them. Yeah,
that's valid. I'd say probably me too.
Yeah.
I don't remember what kind of advertisement it was, but I remember seeing something about the Rivian coming out, and it has all these cool features, and I agree, it's freaking cool, even though it's electric, but...
I just wanted to keep you on electric cars.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. You did it, didn't you? Son of a bitch, everybody's against me.
How about on the opposite of this?
Well, I was going to bring it up anyway because Grant said, Tesla.
Yeah.
And you're kind of right. As far as the new norm, people are like, let's go electric. Let's go electric and whatever. But as far as media, go ahead.
So what about on the flip side of that?
Mm-hmm.
Because a one car company that you would figure would be everywhere but really isn't is Ferrari. Ferrari's known where if you're posting anything about their cars or you're talking to them in a bad light, they'll sue you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see them in commercials.
Mm-mm.
You don't see them.
They don't need it. They're upper echelon. They're exotic land.
You know it because of the name.
Yeah, they've been around forever, and they're always the top of the top, they have their customer list. You have to be on their list. You have to apply to buy one of their cars.
No.
Yes, you do.
No, you have to do it for their supercars, not their traditional cars.
All right. Well,
I can go. Yeah.
But they're all supercars, aren't they? Feels like it.
No, yes.
I think he's correct. And when you're looking at, to date myself a little bit, I think of the Enzo.
You're not that old.
I know, but I think of people who are listening to podcasts.
Yeah. when it comes to any of the Halo cars from Ferrari makes, you have to apply for them.
Yeah.
And it becomes with any special edition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think for their special editions, don't you already have to own one of their cars and be in their database in order to?
Depends on what it is, and even that doesn't get you in there.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're trying to buy something like a LaFerrari, not only do you have to own 5 Ferraris, but you have to show that you're consistently buying the newest Ferrari.
Right.
You're buying with all options.
Yeah.
You're going to events.
So yeah, they don't show up.
You're not painting it.
You're not painting. You're not wrapping it. You're not modifying it. All this other stuff. But
Yeah.
see that they don't need.
But then
social
on the
media.
flip side, though, you have a company like Lamborghini, which is in the same echelon, but they're everywhere on social media.
They are.
They're a Volkswagen.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's
Audi Group.
Yeah.
Volkswagen Group.
You
Yeah.
know? But yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Bring your mic in a little bit. You're echoing.
Okay, I keep getting bring it back, bring it in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because you're talking really
Well, it's because
loud.
you're super loud, and the echo. Once you push it away, we echo.
True.
Yeah, Lamborghini. You're right. They do more social media stuff. They actually have media cars that they will lend out to anybody in the media that they deem. I don't know how they select them, right?
I think
But
that's
they
the
get
same
to drive
thing.
them, and
Like, it's parent company. It's not Lamborghini. That's
yeah, they've made that decision. It's not Ferruccio Lamborghini saying, "Oh yeah, I want to do social media." No,
Yeah.
he's not in charge anymore. So you're right. It's the parent company.
Yeah. Well, what about McLaren? What are they like with their thing?
They don't advertise.
At all?
No,
But yet people still know about them. I would say that is a
it's
McLaren.
because they've been around forever and they're supercar. I think it's a different world.
It's an enthusiast car. Like that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not general market. It's not a Toyota. It's not a Subaru. It's not a
McLaren
Mazda.
is
Their advertising has always been racing.
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, I would consider that a form of social media.
Well, they do a little social media. Yeah. They advertise their new cars coming out and that kind of stuff on the McLaren social media. But I don't know this for a fact. I don't know how much they do for the media events and that kind of stuff. I think they do a little bit because I listened to that other podcast and they've done some social drives with McLaren. So
because it's
out there.
I would say when it comes to influencers, I'd say I've seen on Instagram, on YouTube, on I don't watch TikTok, but sometimes friends send me shorts. You see a lot more McLaren than any other supercar for an influence having that. If we're talking about a supercar, and how much they love it and how much they go through it.
McLaren's into racing though, and Lamborghini's only gotten into customer racing in like the last 5 years.
Have they?
Yeah, yeah, they have. And before that, they never did. And I think it happened. It had to have happened after Volkswagen merger, right? And that might be 5 to 8 years ago. But yeah, they started getting into the GTD. What is it? GTD Pro racing and that kind of stuff. And they have actual customer cars and that kind of stuff. The Huracan was really big in that realm of sports car racing. Where before that, they never did racing. They didn't care. That was not their market.
Yeah.
Whereas Ferrari races or actually builds cars to fund their racing.
Yeah.
Because they've always been racing.
Yeah.
Grant?
Yeah.
I have an assignment for you for this week.
Okay.
So are you going to give him something that can be done? Because good luck.
What?
No. You're the supercar guy.
Okay.
I want you to look up Lamborghini and see if you can find any form of racing that it has ever been in.
I know in the 90s they did.
And what it is.
Okay.
I think way back in the day they had a little bit of F1 stuff. I saw a little blip on that.
They did an engine design for the
Is that
F1.
what it was?
I think so. Because they had an engine. I thought that development for the F1 engine was what ultimately led to the Dodge Viper. Like they used blueprints of that and then modified it to change the Dodge Viper. Wasn't it?
I'm not sure about that. I think some of it came from the BMW partnership with the M1. And I think that was the engine that they were using for the F1 because it was a 12, right? I believe in the M1.
No,
or was that an 8?
No, that was a straight 6.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
You would be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So look that up. See if you can find anything and see if you can figure out why they quit racing.
Okay.
We'll report back next week. We'll have a 0.
I will guarantee
they're going to be graded.
Well, I will guarantee the reason they stopped racing was because when they did, it was in the 90s, they were going bankrupt. And they were taken over by Audi. And I bet you their first thing was to stop the racing program and focus on just building cars and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they
Save
took
money.
forever to get back into it.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. The history is shady. Well, he's going to get an F. I guarantee it.
I'm not going to get an F.
We'll see.
I did my homework on the day we asked for what car companies aren't into racing.
Yeah.
I still remember that one.
Yeah.
On my list.
Your Ferrari books
It'll come up again
weren't in your hand
eventually.
when you came back today, so...
All right. Pivot?
Okay.
Okay. Lemons racing.
Le Mans.
Lemons.
Le Mans Lemons Racing.
24 hours of lemons.
Hooray!
Have you ever done that, Brendon?
I haven't. I'm familiar though.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
Straight in.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You can move the mic if you need to. It's more comfortable.
I think where you're headed is kind of the same issue we're running into with the Gambler, actually, where it's you can't really get a car for $500 anymore.
Yep.
Like,
It's exactly where we're kind of looking at.
The dollar's not carrying the same
I'm pretty
amount.
sure I saw that in the show notes.
It doesn't.
I mean,
it doesn't carry the same weight. Like you can buy a car for $500, but it doesn't have a motor or a transmission
If that.
I remember
or
back
wheels.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
way back when, before I worked at Dock Race the first time, I worked at a shop called Forge Performance over in Troutdale, and there was a guy that he got a CRX for next to nothing, and then he put a K20 in it,
Oh, wow.
and he had had that shop tune it, and so it was just kind of one of those situations of like, okay, cool, you did it for $500,
Quote,
air
unquote.
quotes, yeah. But what happens at the end where you can buy the competitors' cars, right? So you're just gonna.
And somebody's like, "Hey, I'll take it for $500."
Yeah, no kidding. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, and I think that's realistically what it would turn into is people just buying shells or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. I don't see it possible. Like, we've got a car that I bought years ago. It's our Ghost Project car,
Ghost
right?
car.
And one thing leads to another. I gave it to somebody, and then I ended up getting it back. At this point, it's cost me nothing. I mean, I put out some money a long time ago for it, and I think it ran, though I never saw it run. Now it's sitting in my driveway, not running.
I'll get it running.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. This is going to be for grant to project, but I think we'd get called out on it because the car ultimately, motor alone, is worth way more than $500. So we can't go lemons racing in that car.
Well, I'm not sure how it works for the Gambler, but for the Lemons Racing, I thought it was, say if you buy a car for $1,000.
Okay.
If you sell parts on that and keep track of it and show what you've
Right,
sold,
right.
it minuses the value. Say you sold seats for $500.
Mhm.
Well, now your $1,000 car is a value at $500.
Right. But you got to put a seat back in it. So
True. So you have to sell enough. And
can't
put
race on a
stuff
milk
back in.
crate.
Yeah.
well, and I mean the distinction there is that the Gambler's not a race. It's and it's either you can't buy a competitor's car, air quotes, afterwards. I mean we'll talk about the Gambler later, but
Yeah.
it's not the same situation as
Right.
Lemons where it's
The rules are a little bit askew. They're adjacent.
non-existent.
Awesome. Sounds like my kind of event.
Then what would be the number to be at, you think, then, for nowadays?
1,500, maybe.
You think that high?
I do. I absolutely do.
I think $1,000.
For a running car.
I would almost say more, honestly.
Really?
I mean, to make it legit, I agree, but 500 was pretty tight even 10 years ago, right? To have a running car that you could do for 24 hours. I mean, the reality is it going to be safe? I guess you can't they don't put dollar limits on safety.
Right.
So you can add all that, right?
Yep.
But man, yeah, 1,500 is still tight. So I agree with you. Yes.
I
Yeah.
bought a shit box for my kid, and it was $6,000.
Right.
Yeah,
value today is through the roof.
yeah.
What is their tech like as far as
I
like,
don't know. Never done it.
because that's
I'm
the
not
thing.
really
It's
sure.
like imagining getting a car running and driving, ready to race for 24 hours. That's not going to be pissing oil all over the track or coolant or have a battery tie down or, well, I guess that's probably safety, but either way.
So I've raced a Lemons car, but not in the Lemons race. I raced in the Lucky Dog race. Our team, when we had the Miata races,
Right.
we had the Challenge Spec Miata, and then the car I was with the team was in the Lemons car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was built fine, but that was also the car that caused sparks
But
everywhere.
a serious budget build.
Yeah. And that's also when because it was a Miata. That's when Miatas were cheap. What kind of cars can you actually get that are race cars or can survive that?
That's what I'm saying. $1,500 is still super tight.
Yeah.
Subaru Legacy, baby.
Yeah. I mean, is that what everybody's out there in? Is just a Geo Metro that's on its last legs?
No, Geos are expensive now.
Are they?
Yeah, because they're economical.
Yeah, but they don't last 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
Well, maybe no. It's 100,000, isn't it? Like their motor goes right at 100,000. I had one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Miatas went up due to supply and demand. Right?
Absolutely.
So
everybody realized that's a great race car.
Spec Miatas. They're really good in autocross.
Yep.
They were really good in 24 Hours of Lemons.
Mm-hmm.
They're a really good. What's the other race that you did? Lucky Dog. They're a really good Lucky Dog car. I mean, it's a really good platform, right?
Yeah.
So that's why those went up. People start seeing some of these other cars.
Yeah.
Doing really well at the track, and they're cheap. What do you think they're going to do?
Well, think about the other cheap cars that used to exist. We also had the third-gen Camaros. You could pick them up for $500 used to all day. Mm-hmm. Same with the SN95s.
You can get one now without a motor and a transmission for $5,000.
Exactly. So what
do you do?
I would change my mind. And $1,000, you're right, is not
enough.
But also, I think it depends on like what the rules are then. Because say if you buy, a running driving car for let's say $4,500. Let's just say that was the limit.
Okay.
You sell an interior because parts are expensive now too. You sell those parts now, say you're up in the car with no motor, but you're up 10, 12 grand. And I put that into a basic motor, don't need an interior, got gaudy wheels on it because you need those nice fancy wheels, sold trim pieces off, whatever.
I think that's the move. You buy a classic car that's the body's straight but the drivetrain shit, and then you sell all of the trim off of it to get all of your money back.
So you buy a Corvair. Got it.
Exactly.
I don't even think you can get a Corvair for that.
I think the first time I saw Lemons, the cheapest, it was on a college class. There was someone who was doing a video project on their 24 Hours Lemons experience. And the coolest thing I saw was their entire dashboard was made of duct tape. That's how they held all their gauges in. Because that's all they could afford, and that was lightweight.
So I'd be curious to know, like, in the 24 Hours of Lemons, if your motor blows up and you rebuild it.
What's it cost to rebuild it?
Right.
Yeah.
How much do you get to rebuild it?
You don't.
Don't they just bring extra motors?
Still in the price. I know. Now, if your motor blows, you're done. So I did a quick search, and just on cars.com came up 2 Subarus, the only 2. 2001 Subaru Forester for $1,000. It's got 274,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. And the other one, it probably
head gaskets are cheap. It's the labor that's the problem.
No doubt, it probably doesn't run. I didn't click into it. The other Subaru 2002 Outback, 3-liter, 200,000 miles, $700.
Dang.
Well, and
so there you go.
That's part of why that my car, my Gambler car, is such a great car for just as an enthusiast car. To be honest, is around here at least. Parts availability is through the roof. I can go to pick and pull any pick and pull nearby, and there will be parts for that car there. Pretty much any part you can need.
Because there's a lot of them in there.
There's a ton of them. And I mean, there's a ton of them on Craigslist or Marketplace, OfferUp, whatever. You can find them for dirt cheap. And I mean, sure, they're not sporty cars. They're not fast, but you can beat the hell out of them and they'll take it.
Okay. Yeah. Auto Trader, $1,500 cars in Auto Trader. Chevy Cavalier, $1,500. 2000 model, 4-door. That's totally raceable. Nissan pickup, 1995 Nissan XE 2-door.
Don't let Max hear that.
For how much?
He's already got his $1,500. 153,000 miles.
Has it been rolled over several times?
It's not straight. It is on its wheels, but it is not straight. What else we got? A Chevy Malibu. You can race Mom's Malibu for $1,400. 254,000 miles. Wow. That's a lot of miles. Holy shit. Let's see. A 2005 BMW 545 SI sedan. 545i sedan for $1,500.
That's a big car.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a BMW 2005.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's 19 years old, but
it's probably got a good sized motor in it.
151,000 miles.
And has had zero maintenance.
Yeah,
exactly.
It only shows the interior picture, so...
You know the cars that consistently are under $500 that come up for sale?
I have not seen one yet.
I will tell you.
Toyota Prius, $1,500.
The Fiat X19. You can always find like them under but they're the not restored project cars. And the problem is even though you can get them for really cheap, the parts are not. And the availability is not.
Yeah.
And that's where you come into the catch-22.
1970 car, right?
Correct. Well, 1972 to 84. And that's a problem. There is the groups are very gracious because when you talk to them, a lot of people are passionate about getting the cars running. And so there are resources to get them. But it either comes where it's like you're buying a whole nother car for the parts for that, or you're having to go into the aftermarket or to, the fully restoration parts, which aren't cheap.
Hence the reason you have 2 of them in your garage.
Correct.
Here's one for
Actually,
Sean.
I've got 2 in
from last week.
Technically.
Here's one from
because of all
Sean.
the parts.
2004 Volkswagen Bug.
Ooh.
$1,500.
There you go.
Yeah. I know he wants it.
Sean.
From last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't in the studio.
No,
Yeah.
I did get to meet him, though.
2010 Ford Focus. There you go. That's a race car.
Speaking of that bug.
So there's a bunch of cars, honestly, that you could use at $1,500.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not great, but Ford Focus.
Let's start a
I'd
new
race
racing series.
Speaking of that bug.
We'll call it the Untitled Car Project Racing Series.
I was at a store actually earlier this
Impreza.
week and talking to someone about
Impreza.
racing, and they were bringing up how Volkswagen Bugs you could buy them for $10 a dozen back in the day, and now you rarely see them racing because they've actually shot up so much in value that you can't get a classic quote unquote Beetle Bug.
No, not even a non-running one.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder what those ones in Mexico cost. If you went, if you were to travel
Right.
down to
They're
Mexico
not
and buy
cheap.
one of the ones, really?
Yeah, I had a friend, 5 years ago, she had one, and I want to say it was $5,500.
No shit.
Yeah, and it wasn't brand new by any stretch of the imagination. It was a used VW Bug.
That's
So let's
like the 70s era,
70s
version.
era, but it was like a
but newer.
80s or 90s.
Okay, yeah, because I know they built those
Yeah.
forever. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still.
I think
building
they
them.
still
I don't
build
know.
them.
You'd have to look that one up.
yeah. So then let's just as a group, what would our numbers be? Mine I think would be 2,000 or 2,500.
I mean, you could get a lot better car for that.
Yeah.
You can do it
if
for
you
15.
can sell parts on that to go to it.
I think 15 would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think then?
I mean, this is a tough one,
Yeah.
right? The number that came into my head a few minutes ago was 5,000,
Okay.
right? And I think the problem with 5,000 is you can still buy some big
A good
motor cars.
I think you get a good car for 5,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You can get an old Fox body for that, and I mean, if you want to have, I've seen them.
Yeah,
I've been trying.
I almost bought a
Yeah.
Fox body today for
I know.
$700. Almost.
so that was it.
damn.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the Capri Fox body.
It was on Copart, but it
That's
had a
okay.
small
I
engine.
found one of those under the blackberries by my house.
Ooh, another car?
A Capri Fox body.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I think 5,000 is too high.
I was thinking it's too high, but
I mean, you'd have a much more competitive and fun series that way.
you'd have one. hell
But
of
this
a
whole
series.
thing was meant to be cheap
That's why it's chump.
cost
Yeah.
of entry.
I think I'm on board with the 1,500 now.
Yeah.
After hearing your list rattled off.
Yeah. And so you buy one maybe for 2,000 or whatever, and you start selling parts off so you can actually improve the car itself or get something that's a little better. You might even find a Fox body or an old Gen 3 or Gen 4 for 2,000 or 2,500. If you can sell parts and kind of play that balancing game, you could have a decent car.
Yeah.
We should do some research and find out if they're advocating to change the price.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll see about next
I
show.
couldn't even research the next topic. I wanted to,
Okay.
but I was too busy.
What's the next topic?
So next topic was amphibious vehicles. This was one of yours.
Yeah.
This was one of yours, and it plays into the Gambler thing because I think it'd be a fucking cool Gambler car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always been jokes about doing a boat gambler.
Oh my
might just
God.
be
So many people would drown.
Yeah, we're not big on safety equipment either. So
Yeah, right. That costs too much. We're not doing that. So the thought was, does anybody still make them?
Yeah, I know.
And I don't think. Well, actually, I take it back. There was certain manufacturers. I think Chrysler, Volkswagen. Some of them actually had production amphibious vehicles for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
In the 60s, we had the Amphi car. It was supposed to originally be the competitor to the Mustang. Supposed to be. But it didn't take off like it was.
We'd look it up, but our computer died.
Yeah.
That's a phone Google.
But I'm surprised a market like that hasn't taken off because of nowadays where features explode and make like the car and the gimmick of it.
Yeah.
That would be one I'd figure like this would be not an explosive company like it's 100 million cars, but it would be a niche market where it's like it hits YouTube and people see it and be like, "Oh, you see that funny car?"
I think that's the problem. Is too niche. You wouldn't sell but 100 units.
Well, and that's, I mean, for a price point, because they're going to be expensive as hell, and the people who can afford to buy them are like, well, I already have a boat.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I don't need to take my car off the boat ramp. And,
right.
And
I think it comes down to repair. Because how much
it comes down to a lot of different things. Like, is it worth it? They're ugly as sin, too. Like, they're just not.
They're not.
You can have biballast on the sides, like have like wings, kind of, or like have it be like a
still ugly.
Yeah.
They're usually not good cars, and they're also usually not good boats.
Right, so they're not good anything.
I mean, Jeremy Clarkson turned a Toyota into one, a full pickup truck.
Sure,
and
yeah, that worked out really well.
It did. It went in the ocean twice.
So yeah, I don't. It's just not a good market. It's the one-off thing now. It's a niche thing. And even the one-offs are not that good anymore.
They did make a Lotus one, though.
The underwater James Bond one?
Yeah, that actually is a functional one. I'll show you a video with James May actually driving it underwater.
Or at least someone did. A submarine car would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I have to go electric motor
actually,
into that.
That would be pretty cool. That would be a better seller probably than...
The problem is if you made a submarine car...
You can do the Austin limit. Powers mini sub, the Mini Cooper submarine.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah. So, I don't know. That topic died as far as I'm concerned. It was not... it was... I had no time to do any research, so...
We should hear from our listeners if they have any ideas what an amphicar would be.
I would listen to all the... if anybody wants to reach out about lemons, especially, like, if you've got some information or maybe somebody's done it, please email me, untitledcarproject@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. We'll love to hear about it.
Yeah.
Or hit us up on the group page. Love to hear about that. That'd be really cool. Somebody that knows a little deeper, because, again, research is at a premium.
I try.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Legit try.
Yeah, me too. Didn't have time.
I know.
So let's talk Subaru stuff.
Okay.
Let's talk about Gambler stuff.
Yay.
Let's start with your car, Brandon.
So, I mean, we can start with just the evolution of that car realistically, because
from first one to now to
So originally, I bought the car from a chiropractor who used it to haul around his dogs, and he sold it to me. He had it listed for like $700 on Craigslist, and I showed up with $500 in my hand and drove away with it. I lived in Tacoma at the time, and I made it to mile marker like 60. No, not 60, like 30 or 40 on I-5 before the clutch went.
Oh boy!
And
almost made it to Kelso.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much.
Not quite there. Yeah.
But so I mean, the intent was never to follow the rules to a T, because that was, as I was alluding to earlier, the rules for the Gambler are not really rules.
Guidelines more per se.
Exactly. There are some folks that are diehard, like buy the car for $500 or less and run it, and that's cool. I'd love to do that at some point, but that's not what I had in mind. I bought that car, threw Forester struts on it, and put 30-inch mud tires and cut everything off to make room for them.
Yeah.
And pretty much ran it as is that year. That was 2018.
Actually in the Gambler with it that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then I did several more events in the following year, because there's the original Gambler, or the Oregon Gambler known as OG, that's every June, July in Central Oregon. And then there's also a ton of satellite events. There's local Gamblers, and they're usually actually way more fun, to be honest with you. Typically around 100 people show up. I think the biggest one I've been to was 300 people. That was the Winter Wonderland event a few years ago. But regardless, I'm getting off topic.
We're all about it. We get off topic all the time.
I feel like we need one of these.
I know. Right?
Yeah,
you do.
We need to experience more stuff like this.
Yeah, and I mean, the car did great. I'm pretty sure that's when the head gasket blew on that car, but I ran it for another probably 10,000 miles, 15,000 miles with the blown head gasket. It just liked to puke all of the coolant out.
Sure.
Just threw some sealant in there.
As they will do.
Called it good.
No, ran it as it was.
Just had extra water on hand.
Just kept putting coolant in it.
Yeah.
And then over time, it just kind of, then that's kind of more referred to in the community as cheater class, where you're spending $500 and then spending more money on the car or whatever.
Okay.
And now, at this point, the car has kind of transitioned into what's more called hater class, which is where you've just kind of gone off the rails, which is what I've done. And that's kind of... It's still on Forester struts. That's the next thing that needs to be addressed, is I want to put some Raceworks coilovers on it. They're just lift coilovers, essentially, for Subarus. Nice. But otherwise, it's got tubular front-lower control arms with Heim joints and rear... lateral links and trailing arms, all Heim joints as well, so it's all completely adjustable suspension. The EZ30 swap was this year's big project, and that was...
Okay, I'm Subaru illiterate, so tell me what motor it had in it and what an EZ30 is.
So the original engine's a EJ22, so that's the 2.2-liter flat four. It's kind of known to be like the most bulletproof Subaru engine.
Okay. That was also naturally aspirated, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, the EJ22, from my understanding, there was no difference between the NA engine and the turbo model that they put into like the Legacy GTs and whatnot. So even like to the extent of you could put a turbo on that engine and put bigger injectors in it, and the ECU could like map for it, essentially.
Oh, wow. So it would just work, bolt on and go.
Would just go. Yeah.
Okay.
I beat the hell out of that motor. It took all of it, and I mean, it was literally on rev limiter every time I drove it. Like
wow.
it just cold start to rev limiter frequently.
Oh wow.
Like, and I mean, sometimes when it was below freezing outside.
Oh,
like,
wow. That's brutal.
Yeah, I beat that engine into the ground. It was time for it to go when it went. I got a good 5 years out of it.
Damn.
Yeah. And so, and I mean, that's running it in over 100-degree temperatures and bend rev limiter like all the time. Like it was just abused. And so that was this last year coming back from OG. I made it. I was coming over Mount Hood, and it was getting hot. It was puking coolant. It was mad. And I was just kind of at the point of, I'm just going to try to limp it home, and coasting down from government camp. I was in rhododendron, I think, when it finally just stopped.
Oh.
And it coasted it off, and just no compression.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it had been idling for 10 minutes. So I don't know how temperature gauge was reading normal. It was just, I think there was just
meltdown.
So much exhaust gas in the cooling system.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah. And so that was the point of like, okay, the power in this car has been an issue from day one. It's got 390 gears. So 390 gears plus 30-inch tires plus engine that makes no power.
Yeah.
Wasn't a great combination off-road. Uphill was not an option.
There was no climbing to be had.
No, none at all.
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of like, I could address gearing, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's actually easier to add power. And
so 390 gears with 33-inch tires, that probably brought you down to 342 somewhere.
30-inch tires.
30. Okay, but still, so it's dropped you considerably.
My speedometer has not been accurate in a long time.
Right.
There's a few options for Subarus. They're pretty limited. There's like some 410s, I think, and then the Forester XTs have 444s, and those are like
there you go.
Those are the ones that people seek out.
Yeah, especially if you're running oversized.
Yeah. I'll circle back to those in a minute.
Okay.
The EZ30, that engine in the US cars is in like the Subaru Outback LL Beans from 02 to 04.
Okay.
They also were available in some of the Bajas, I think. But I just kind of was like, okay, well, let's fix this problem with displacement. And did some research, talked to a few folks in it's called a Six Swap Subarus group on Facebook, and they just kind of walked me through what I needed to do. And it turned out like the easiest way to do it was just to swap the entire wiring harness from an 02 Outback. And I mean, like bumper to bumper, all of the wiring has been swapped over.
Oh, wow.
Every single switch, motor, everything I had to like basically go through and pin out, continuity test to make sure, make everything work. Bummer, but I mean, everything works now. So
understood, but yeah, was it because of the CAN bus and just the way it would talk to everything it couldn't?
It just, the wiring in like the doors was different. The wiring for the fuel pump was different. So it was a matter of like just essentially seeking out what wire goes where. And Subaru's pretty bad about their wire colors.
Yeah.
So like nothing's consistent from model to model, car to car.
Love that.
Yeah. So you don't really know what's doing what until you start continuity testing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, no, I spent the last, it was this whole winter was that project. And I didn't even learn until like after the fact how cool that engine actually is. It's it's an aluminum block, sleeved cylinders. Mm-hmm. Supposedly good to 400 horsepower stock block.
Wow.
Sweet. And from my understanding, and what I'm guessing is everybody that tells me about them that's had them has said like they're the most reliable Subaru engine, maybe aside from the EJ22, but I'm assuming it's because of that aluminum block. Mm-hmm. Like that's why they probably don't blow head gaskets as much. And then on top of that, you have a timing chain instead of a timing belt. But supposedly from the factory, 240 horsepower ish. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it rips in that car because it's for a car that's 1,000 pounds heavier.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it does good. I mean, it's by no means a fast car, but it's much faster than it should be.
It does. It has power to do what you want it to do, which is off road.
It goes uphill now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have same gear still?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then do you have cooling issues?
Yes. Yeah. So those engines, from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, that they commonly have cooling issues. I think for mine particularly, it's a matter of airflow and how close the radiator is to the engine. You saw when we had the hood open. There's there's 2 inches between the radiator fans and the front of the motor.
Yeah.
So that's why there's essentially I was told it's an oil warmer that comes on that block from the factory because it has coolant lines that run through it. It's a little like coil that sits behind between the oil filter and the block. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you would want an oil warmer other than to maybe warm the oil up faster. I have a hard time believing the oil would warm up slower than the coolant, but either way,
interesting.
Deleted cold environments, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
I clapped that on a couple rocks off-road and the oil filter as well. I decided that wasn't a good location for those, so relocated the oil filter up top and then put an oil cooler in instead of that.
How hard was it to do that?
Not that hard. It's really expensive for what it is, to be honest, because it's all AN fittings, and then on top of that, you want to add in an oil thermostat, which adds more price point, and then it's all, it adds up.
Do you have to include a bigger oil pump for expanding the distance for it, or what?
We'll find out.
Okay.
So far, no issues. It's not throwing like a oil pressure light or anything. So,
how much extra oil did you get in it with that?
I think it works out to like 2.5 extra quarts.
Okay.
But I put one-way check valves on either side, so that way
it doesn't drain out.
It doesn't drain out. So when I do my oil changes, it still should only be 5 quarts.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I think it helped. I think it helped because over the Gambler weekend last weekend, it got warm a few times on climbs, and that's when it does it typically. Is just heavy work uphill.
Yeah.
But previously it would occasionally get warm on the highway, whatnot. It's not doing that anymore. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
And that's oil temperature, radiator temperature too, water temperature.
I'm actually not measuring oil temp. It's just measuring water temp, and the water temp was what was picking up.
Gotcha.
And I figured it would just.
Is there any opportunity to relocate radiator or maybe put an extra on?
Ultimately, it's kind of a hard choice here because most people, what they're doing is they're just cutting out core support, moving it forward a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that's like, I should just do that and spend it's like $700 for an aluminum radiator for that because that block, the coolant, the water jackets are independent for each side of the block. So it has 2 upper radiator hoses and 1 lower.
Oh, wow.
So it's got a funky radiator either way. Getting, again, off topic, but
no, it's all project. It's all on topic.
Question. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to radiator and fluid, do you guys have to run in the Gambler water-based, or could you can actually run antifreeze? Because the environment you're going to is like heavily wooded areas for a lot of part, correct?
Yeah, there's no regulations.
No regulations? Okay.
Yeah. I've had somebody tell me to run water wetter because they thought it would have like better cooling efficiency, and I don't really. Oh, okay.
I run it in race cars. I've noticed the difference.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That might be worth trying out because, I mean, I am curious to do anything I can to get that car cooling better.
It's about a 5% gain in cooling, but you want to run less antifreeze glycol.
Right.
So it's a more water base. So if you're going to be in freezing temperatures for extended periods, you need to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, I pull the cooling system apart on this car, every few weeks essentially. So
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, swapping out for the winter is not a big deal.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I would like to do is reposition the radiator in the back of the car. Because long-term goal for the car is essentially desert racing vehicle.
There you go.
Like a Baja racer.
Right, and so I'd like to, when I cage it, put the radiator behind the driver's seat essentially and just run ducting for it and see if it works, see if it's fit. I mean, but I could also go to a much larger radiator at that point as well.
Just about anything you wanted to.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Put a big old truck one in there.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Just get it really farther away from everything and better airflow. You got it away from the motor and all that stuff.
But then that also becomes thousands of dollars of roll cage.
It's only money, man.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time student.
Yeah. Well, that's valid. Yeah.
At some
taking
point,
sponsorships now.
Yeah, open to sponsorships.
At some point, you won't be a full-time student.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, my goal is to be a psychologist. So once that psychologist money's rolling in, then we'll talk about roll cages.
Then we can talk about why we do all this.
Yeah.
What's our problem?
Yeah. So ultimately that's the fix, and so that's part of why I'm not really sure if it's worth my time right now to cut out the core support if it's cooling efficient enough. I think it's kind of going to be more a matter of how long it is before my boss convinces me to put a turbo on the car.
Danger.
Yeah, because once that happens, it's
you think you have cooling issues now.
Yeah. But at that point, it's also going to be a matter. I'm probably going to have to do tube front regardless, just to fit the turbo in there somewhere.
But just think, after the turbo comes the LS motor.
No,
that's down the line. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, all right.
I got to know though.
That's a good future plan. I like the off-road Baja style. Like that would be pretty darn cool. Cages are expensive, and then taking windows out and all that. I mean, you're going full race car at that point.
Have you ever heard of the Yellowstone Off-Road Racing Association?
No.
So they do some endurance racing in Montana and I think Wyoming as well. I think that would be a good starting point for that kind of racing for myself, because it's more like 100, 150 miles versus committing to Mint 400.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, get your feet wet. I used to do a little off-road UTV stuff. Wanted to get into the racing. It didn't happen, but I did notice Eastern Oregon, they've got some associations that do some of that. Some are more serious than others. So, there's that opportunity too.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
There's also, again, it's not just cage. There's also a lot of suspension work that needs to be done prior to that as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For the factory subframes need to go. There's the guy that makes the suspension I have right now. Sorry. Also, he makes essentially all of the suspension down to the subframes for Subarus.
Yeah.
And he also, he makes all kinds of cool shit. He makes cradles so you can put an LS into a WRX.
There we go.
All kinds of cool stuff.
What kind of suspension travel can you get out of that? And does it really work? If you jumped it, you're going through some sand rollers, you going to soak that stuff up, or it just depends on your budget?
My back soaks it up.
Yeah, you get a spring-loaded seat.
It's I don't know, honestly. There's a guy out of Vegas, I think, that has similar build. He did an STI swap instead, and he's got the full gambit of this guy. It's TSS Fab. He's out of Kent, Washington, I think, but he has all of his suspension with the Raceworks coilovers, and I've seen him do some desert stuff, and it looks like he's getting 10, 12 inches of travel, which isn't...
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. For a Subaru, for an all-wheel drive car, that's...
Absolutely.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see we'll see once that time rolls around.
Yeah, I mean, likely pretty far down the road, just because that's money. I mean, unless the guy says, yeah, I would like to sponsor your car and get you out in our racing, and that's everybody's dream. Did you have something?
Yeah, so Brendon, I got to know, like, starting not over, but how did you get into this? And, like, what would you tell, like, our listeners, like, what the draw to is to be part of the Gambler?
So I saw a video in 2016, I want to say, from the 2016 Gambler. And just like a YouTube video. Funny, we were talking about social media stuff, but yeah, no, I saw a YouTube video of like what they were doing and was like, I need to do this. I need to do this. And so 2017 rolled around. I still had a 1991 or 1990 Isuzu pickup that I was going to run, and was like gearing up, driving it down to Vancouver from Tacoma, getting ready to go, and blew it up on the way down.
Oh my gosh.
So just kind of shadowed that year. I drove out to actually the same place I camped this year. I went to Three Creek Lake out. It's just south of Sisters.
Okay.
And just kind of saw everybody that year, saw everybody running, giant Cadillacs on, like 35s. I was like, okay, this seals the deal. And so that was how next year, the 2018 Gambler was the year.
Nice. Okay. And you were Subaru 2018?
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. No, that's really cool. So yeah, tell us about the Gambler and what it's like, what it's all about. What kind of stuff do you see?
Do you see teams there with just crazy themes?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like it's really hard to like encapsulate it into one thing, because it's not. It's whatever the person that wants to do it makes it into. Cause like I've drifted away from the proper event itself, because I used to, like, the first couple years I would go into it's called Gambler Town, where everybody kind of meets up and parties. And 2018 I describe pretty commonly as like, I've been to parties that big before, and I had been to parties that wild before, but I had never been to a party that was that big and that wild.
Oh, wow. All at once.
And this is also before the Gambler was really as monetized as it is now, I guess is the best way to say it, because like they had like 3-4 people running the event that year, and there was 5,500 people.
Wow, Lord.
Yeah, like they ran out of room in the rock pit that they were using for camping. People were like camping outside of the rock pit coming in. There were people, I mean, left and right, flying by on mini bikes, drinking beer.
Just insane, out of control.
Yeah, all over the place.
Okay. It sounds like something we need to get into.
I mean, to a degree, that's not really my scene.
We need to get
I don't like the out of controlness of that. It can't, it's not. Yeah, but.
We need to get an Explorer and paint it red, green, and yellow.
Well, it's already been done several times.
Right.
Gambler Town, I went last year. I didn't go this year. But last year I was kind of expecting it, because there's so much money in the event now. I was expecting it to be a lot more locked down. Mm-hmm. And, when you're rolling in, all of the officials, so to speak, or, no burnouts, no rev limiter, no sirens, no this, that, and after the sun went down, all the rules were gone.
It all happened anyway.
Yeah, there was. I think I saw a video of a guy jumping a three-wheeler over a fire. Like it's like,
yeah, that's the stuff I want to see.
Yeah,
I just don't want to get arrested for it.
Last year, well, it's in the Deschutes County Fairgrounds, so I mean, like it's on public land, but it's also sectioned off,
also controlled.
Yeah, okay. There was last year. They ran into a bit of an issue last year. I can't remember the guy's name, but he.
Probably better that we don't mention it.
Yeah, he fell off of his van and I think cracked a couple ribs and punctured a lung.
Oh.
And he was all right, but he needed to go to the hospital, and so they called an ambulance. And the problem is, in Gambler Town, everybody's got a siren. Yeah. So nobody knew something was wrong.
Nobody's paying attention to the actual ambulance.
The paramedics had a hell of a time getting to him.
Yeah. Wow.
Because it's a parade inside Gambler Town.
Sure.
I think the first year there was this Cadillac, this like 70s convertible Cadillac that was rolling around, and at first there was just the two guys that were driving it doing laps around Gambler Town. Mm-hmm. Then the next time they came around, there was like 3 people in the car, and then the next time there was like 8 people on the car, and then by the end of the night there was just as many people as you could pile onto the hood, onto the trunk. Like it was. The car was dragging on the ground. Like,
that's amazing.
It was incredible.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like an 80s teen movie.
But I'm I'm talking up the party a bit too much, I think, because it's become something bigger because it must have been 2016, 2017. They realized like, hey, we need to start getting like permits for this.
Yeah, it's too big. Yeah.
And so to get permits, the easiest way to do that if you want to do something on public land is to say, we're going to do something for you. And so it turned into, we're going to pick up trash while we're out in the woods. We're going to do a trail cleanup, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that's how the Gambler turned into the world's biggest competitive trail cleanup.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. And so that's what it is now, is realistically, I mean, sure, there's still the party, but it's really focused on like bringing in as much trash as you can. And like I said, it's become competitive. Mm-hmm. So people are coming in with boats. People are coming in with like whatever they can find. I saw there was like a Nissan Sentra. It was like a 90s Neon or a Nissan Sentra, one of the little tiny ones. I think it had already been cut into a convertible, but they had put one of those, they found one of those truck bed campers, one of the big ones.
Okay.
For like a 1-ton truck.
Okay.
They had put that on the back of this Nissan and brought it back to Gambler Town. There was a Suburban that they put a whole Toyota Tacoma in the back of it. I don't know how they got it in there, but they had found it burned out in the woods. So
so they brought it back.
They brought it back. Like I said, I have no idea how they got it on top of that Suburban, but it was there and they'd brought it back.
Wow.
So they were. Is that part of the competition? Whoever brings the most weight in garbage back wins. So I mean, you got to win something.
There are prizes, and then there's the it's called the Gibby. It's named after a gambler who we lost a few years ago, a couple of years ago. But he the Gibby was originally, I don't remember what it was called before, the Scepter, I think, whatever. And it's just they kind of pick somebody every year that's just the winner, and it's. I don't want to say it's a popularity contest because that's not what it is. They pick somebody who deserves it. But then there's also like wildest build. There's if you bring in a truck on the back of your truck, then you're probably going to get something for it. And they're partnered with like Traxxas now, so they hand out RC cars to people. And yeah, there's some cool prizes for folks. I don't want to say it's not a proper competition, but it's not really a competition. It's if you're
who's outlandish the most.
If you're there to compete, you're there for the wrong reason. Essentially, it's more just to kind of have fun.
Interesting.
Yeah, but so like I said, there are still the folks out there who are the diehard. Like I'm going to do it in a $500 car, and like I said, I would like to do that too because I think it would be fun to just see what happens, but. It also sounds like a nightmare to be.
Sort of. So what was the original premise of the Gambler? There's a laid out route that you're supposed to go, a certain amount of mileage. What's the actual deal?
I believe, and I probably should know this better, but there were, I want to say it was like five guys. Tate Morgan has kind of taken the reins as like the president of the Gambler, essentially. But there's Chuck Brazier as well, who runs Hoopty Cross, which is the racing series affiliated with the Gambler. I'm blanking on other names, but either way, there were these few guys that it was legit then, we're buying a $500 car and we are racing it off-road across Oregon.
Okay, yeah.
And that's why, again, we can't race. We can't race with 5,000 people across Oregon that night.
Right.
Isn't it a poker run?
I thought it was some sort of trail, and this is just peripheral, right? Never done it, never really looked into it, but I thought it was some sort of, you buy a $500 car, and the competition is, there's a marked out route, and I don't remember... is it 100 miles? Is it 500 miles? Is that why they call it Gambler 500? Or is that $500, the Gambler on your car? Anyway, so you drive this marked out route and try to make it. And it's supposed to be challenging, whether that's challenging in off-road or challenging in the distance and the heat and, the whole thing. That was just my peripheral
I thought it was all that,
understanding.
It was also timed, whoever got there
first.
Is
it timed? Okay.
That's what I thought. I mean, you could correct us.
It may have been timed in the early days, but I know it's not timed now. Okay. I guess firstly what I'll say is there used to be more of a set route, and you'd have waypoints, and that's part of it's a navigation challenge as well. There's set waypoints as far as where you're supposed to go.
That adds up. Yeah.
The waypoints have not been as much of a thing more recently. Yeah. I think there was like 10 of them this year. I didn't go to any of them. Okay. But there's also been
it's morphed a bit over the years.
Well, and then there's also the satellite runs, like I said, like I was talking about, and so there's a guy, a character, so to speak, that goes by Stanley Gamblerton, and he,
all right,
he does events every once in a while, but his are kind of notorious for being real outlandish. He did, I think it was 2019 or 2020. He did Run Like the Dead or something like that, and it was essentially a scenic drive to cemeteries across Oregon. Oh, wow. But you had to, and they were like abandoned cemeteries, like very like ghost townish type stuff.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, but he also gave you like a sheet with some instructions, and then there was this little wheel cipher thing you had to use to find like a certain tombstone or something, and then use that to figure out where your next point was.
That actually sounds really cool.
Fun. Yeah,
and it was timed.
Yeah,
because he doesn't play by the same rules. It was kind of
you actually got rules to follow. And
does that mean every gambler car has to be street legal if you're going?
Yes.
Okay, that I did not know.
It's per the rules, they are supposed to be street legal.
So how do they make it? Because I guarantee for buying a car for $500, a lot of them aren't passing the EQ. So does that mean like a lot of them are registered out of state or like out of...
Figure it out, Grant.
Oh,
that's what I think. It's one of those you got to figure it out.
My car's got Washington plates on it, but I'm from Washington.
Well, you live in Washington, so that's fair.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to try to handle it from Oregon. I mean, there's got to be some kind of workaround that people have done, like maybe get the car, get it smogged, and then do what you're going to do to it. Because there's a Cadillac rolling around, like a probably 60s Cadillac that's it's a dually now, and it's rear engined. Okay. So there's no way it's street legal when you look at it.
So that
sounds cool.
That's what I was wondering if it could be like if it's part of the rules now. Because like for example, if you have a car that's a race car, you can always get a temporary tag and put it in the back. And I mean that'll break all rules if you don't have to make it like pass smog or have turn signals or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we don't really have rules.
You gotta figure that out. That's just on you.
Yeah. You find your loophole, buddy.
For sure. Yeah.
How's the actual like course running? Like when you're going to point, like what is that experience like?
I mean, I enjoyed that aspect of it. I really do like running the waypoints. Even though I didn't do it this year, that's something that I enjoyed doing. I mean, it's kind of turned into more of like Tate's gotten better about marking like, hey, this is trash, like where we want this area cleaned up, or hey, this is a scenic viewpoint, essentially.
Okay. And that's a mapped thing. Like, do you get a physical map?
No. You get waypoints, and that's it. Okay. Waypoints with names.
Gotcha.
Is that something you could do on you have to have a satellite phone, or like Google, just type, push, you're there?
I use Gaia GPS. Okay. And so that's honestly been the best thing that I've seen, because you can just download the maps and follow it that way, and you can even plot courses with it without having to like go in point by point on the map. Mm-hmm. Gaia's been the best. I used to use Google Maps. I tried using a Garmin for a year, but it kept coming unstuck from the windshield because it was too hot. So,
yeah.
The Garmin was actually pretty rad because you could go in and plot all of the waypoints ahead of time, and then zoom out, look and see where everything was, and kind of plan where you were going to go.
Trails and whatever. So it's off-road capable.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I've lost it. Either way.
Yeah. Maybe it'll come back. I have a question, though. You kept mentioning that it's gotten more expensive. Is there an entry fee? What financial output is there to be in this event?
I want to say, so there's a ticket for admission to Gamblertown.
Okay.
And then if you want to camp in Gamblertown, there's an additional fee.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I didn't look to see what it cost this year. I think last year it was like $40-$50 a person, something like that. And I mean, they do give you value for that. In that, like, there's all kinds of vendors there, and I mean, they had a monster truck there last year. That was pretty cool. But you can typically see like the Hoopty Cross track from Gamblertown.
Oh, okay.
And that racing can be pretty fun to watch. Hoopty Cross has got to be like one of the cheapest racing series to like get into as an entry level like grassroots motorsport.
Yeah.
Because it's literally run whatever you want, and you pay by the lap. And the last time I did it, it was like $10 a lap, essentially.
By the lap. $10 a lap's kind of expensive.
But they were long laps, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the track. Like, what is Hoopty Cross?
Depends on where you're at, because like there was the last one I did was in Oregon City, and that track it got pretty rutted out. It was pretty gnarly. It was a rainy day. It was in like September or something like that. But then there's also like the one that's at the Deschutes County Fairground is sand, dust, dirt, like very soft looking. There's one in Chehalis. Well, it used to do one in Chehalis, but I think that was similar. And that it was very soft.
So circle track.
No, it's like a road course, but off road essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of a rally situation.
Yeah,
but is it circle track was the wrong word, but is it a loop of some kind? And is it? I mean, how do they score? Is it scored? Is it timed? What is it?
It's timed.
Okay.
And now that I think about it, it's not a circuit. It's usually
one into another.
A to B. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very autocross-esque.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. It's same exact concept.
Yeah. So rallycross, same thing.
Yeah. And I mean,
but you can run whatever you want.
To bear in mind, like when I say $10 a lap, first off, you're going to be waiting in line to get your lap in.
Yeah. And
so realistically, like you're probably only going to get, if your car lives through it, you're probably only going to get 4 or 5 laps.
Gotcha.
I broke my car on my 3rd lap, I think.
So the course is gnarly.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had not gone as hard on the car, I wouldn't have broke it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. No, it sounds entertaining though.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy out there with one of those, I don't know the different like letter associations with the Jeeps, but it's one of those two-door Jeeps, the Wranglers, and it's got a V8, runs on propane, and then he's got hydraulic, I think, left and right brakes, so he can make it rotate in. Yeah.
Wow.
And that thing rips. It's fast around the track.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And you see a really wild array. I don't know if they've expanded their class system, because originally it was like all-wheel drive or two-wheel drive, and now there's guys showing up in like actual racing vehicles. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So probably more divisions.
Probably.
The more people get interested, they kind of have to split it up in some ways. In my head, maybe not. Maybe they're like, run what you brung.
And that's kind of been our thing. Is more or less the less rules the better. Essentially, makes it more fun.
Yeah.
And
unless you're losing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're out there to win, maybe that's the wrong aspect, but I'm a racer, so, that's kind of where my head goes.
Yeah.
And that series has spread across the United States. Like, he does events all over the United States, so, like, there are people that actually go out of their way to go to all of them.
Oh, wow, that's
or
crazy.
Close to. And so, yeah.
People like racing shit.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. They really do. That's
What's awesome. some of the wildest builds you've seen there?
That Caddy's pretty wild. God. There was... The year I was there, I don't know if it's still in rotation, but there's a bendy bus with a hot tub in the back.
What's a bendy bus?
A bus that articulates in the middle.
Oh, what? Oh, wow.
Bendy bus.
A bendy bus. God, there was apparently I don't know if he was competing or if he was just there to make money. There was one of those 3-wheel ice cream trucks.
Oh,
like the tuk-tuk style.
Yeah, that's funny.
A lot of postal vehicles end up in it.
That's funny.
God, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know.
Just everything.
Everything. Ambulances, fire trucks, everything you can think of is there.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's chopped to hell, usually.
Yeah.
The rougher the shape, the better.
I mean,
seems like.
Less weight.
Less weight.
There you go.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything else on the Gambler?
I mean, we pretty much covered a lot of the stuff I was going to ask. I mean, how often is there with the Gambler? Is there? And you said that the main one takes place in June, July. Like with autocross, we have a season. Our season starts in like maybe February at the earliest to March and ends by October.
Yeah.
So with the Gambler, is there a season for that? Does it happen all year round? Like when is the biggest groups going? When is it,
he talked about the OG happens June, July, right?
Yeah, but there's also
all those peripheral ones. Yeah.
Some are bigger than others, and I wouldn't say there's a season, because I think you could pretty much do a Gambler every month.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
So if you're really into it. you could just do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done 7 in a year, I think.
Oh.
And I mean, it's more highly concentrated here as well. Because, I mean, I hosted 2 in 2020, 2021, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I did Gamble the Burn out in the Yakult Burn, and that was like 15 people. It was pretty fun. And then I did a scavenger hunt, and that
sounds fun.
Not many people showed, but the people who did had a great time.
That does sound pretty cool.
Really
that would be cool.
I started it up in like not Gig Harbor, it's north of there, but up on the peninsula.
Yeah.
And then the camp was in over by Yakima, essentially.
Oh, damn!
That's
camp.
a good
Well,
little trick.
it was from the peninsula to Yakima, and then it ended in the Dalles.
Okay,
wow.
that's a trek. Yeah,
It was great.
How many days?
It was 2 days.
Okay,
2 days, and there was a pretty decent amount of trash picked up. The Skamania County transfer station was really cool. They just said, "Hey, like we're not going to charge you. Just bring it here. We'll take care of it." Essentially,
that's
nice.
really awesome.
Yeah.
So the scavenger hunt was to find particular trash items, or
no. I mean, it was still. So I like to think of the gamblers. There's 2 different mentalities or 2 different groups of thought, and so like the one that I did in Yakult was more focused towards the cleanup.
Okay,
and then the scavenger hunt was more fun oriented.
Fun-based.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
And so, I mean, there were trash items to pick up. Like, I assigned points based off of what things were, essentially. And so I said, bring me a boat. And Stanley Gamblerton showed up, and he went to a garage sale and bought a Little Tykes fucking pirate ship.
Found a boat.
This asshole. And this guy, he showed up.
Calling you out, Stanley.
Showed up with bags of trash, threw them around the area that we were camping in, and then picked them up the next day.
Oh my god,
that's funny.
He's great. Yeah, no, he's a fun guy. God, we could do an episode just on him. So he was kind of just causing a ruckus in the Gambler Facebook group, which is where like everything gets disseminated. Mm-hmm. And he got kicked out of the group several times for like just kind of being an ass and like talking shit about or to Tate, the guy who runs everything. And like, but nobody knew who he was.
Okay.
Like everybody saw the name and they saw his Facebook profile, but you can't tell who he is. And so he was harassing Tate for like years.
Oh, wow.
Before it was discovered that
who it was.
Stanley was a friend of Tate's.
Oh, that's even better.
And Tate didn't know.
That's the best part right there.
Yeah, it was. And I only found out at that scavenger hunt because it wasn't like broadly known at that point yet.
Yeah.
But that was fun. He showed up in a little Isuzu Amigo, I think.
So yeah, tell me about the scavenger hunt that you put on. Was there particular? Did it have to be a gambler type car, or was there any kind of?
No, there was no limit on what you could drive, but it was like, bring me a burger from Dick's Drive-In and one from In-N-Out, but you have to bring them together.
Oh wow!
Or bring me receipts for Jack in the Box tacos, but you only get 1 point per receipt, essentially. Mm-hmm. So. Or brewery coasters, or this or that, or the other thing. Like, I don't even remember everything I put on the list, but there was, bring me all these little things to show me, but I made it difficult. So, like, if you chose to do this thing, you had to not just go to point A, but you also had to go to point B.
Yeah.
And so there was, like, a lot of stuff on the coast. There were some folks that went out to the coast, followed the coast down, and then cut over.
Damn.
Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a trek.
It was a fun one. And that was kind of the point of that one for me, was to more stress mileage. Like,
yeah, for sure. So for our listeners, because we do have a lot on the East Coast, like, what's the mileage of that?
I mean, as far as if you were to go from the peninsula to the coast isn't far, but if you're going from the peninsula to the coast and then to central Washington,
right?
Well, that's a big distance.
Yeah, that's hundreds of miles.
Yeah, I'm thinking 300-400.
Yeah, I was thinking 4 to 5. Yeah. But yeah, it's a trek.
Yeah,
for sure. And then if you go you go out to the coast, maybe that's 40, 50 miles that follow the coast down and then come across. Yeah, you're adding another 50 to 100 miles to that.
Yeah, and it depends on where you come across, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no good artery.
No, there isn't.
You can cut through the forest there, but it's tricky.
Well, even coming down the Washington coast is not easy.
No.
It's not a great highway.
It doesn't have the accessibility you do on like the Oregon coast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you cross Highway 12, oof.
The event was in August, I think. July, May. It was summer, so it wasn't like you were going to have trouble on the pass. But
Right.
No, but the road, Highway 12 is not like going over I-90, right?
No.
It's not,
Oh, no.
I-90's got some windy spots, but Highway 12 is fairly windy all the way across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I we pre-ran that event in like January, I want to say, and in a 2000 Pathfinder that was on its last leg.
Nice.
And yeah, it was snow and ice on the pass coming over 12, and it was sketchy.
Yeah, I bet it was. Wow.
So I got one last question about the Gambler. So if you're entering the Gambler, what kind of support should you expect? Like if you're going to autocross, you can bring your car and just drive it as your daily. But a lot of us are now trailing our cars there. If the Gambler, especially if we're trying to keep it at the $500 budget, is it something like you should bring a truck trailer, have friends there, have check waypoints, have what kind of safety equipment should you be wearing, et cetera, et cetera?
Safety equipment.
Like exactly, helmet.
Helmet.
Not even that. You got a sun hat and some sunscreen.
Yeah.
Safety third. It's kind of dependent person to person and what you're going to be driving.
Mm-hmm.
If you are mechanically inclined and you pick something like a Subaru that's going to do relatively well off-road and likely be relatively reliable, you're probably going to be fine on your own if you have tools. And the thing is, especially in that circumstance, if you're on the Gambler 500 Rally group on Facebook, if you have access to internet while you're broken down wherever, if you just put like SOS in that group, this is my position, I need help, somebody's going to show up because they take that as a challenge.
Mm.
I like it.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's there's a lot of community behind it. It used to be, man, back in the day, if you went to a Gambler event, like there was, especially like Highway 20, Highway 22, all of those main arteries coming into like the Bend area, it would just be littered with Gambler cars on the side of the road, broken down.
The ones that didn't make it.
And well, no, because people would be working on them, and somebody else would stop and help them out till they got going, and it was kind of playing leapfrog because one car would break, and then somebody'd help, and then their car would break, and
yeah, I got you. Yeah.
that's how I met a friend of mine, Steve Light. He owns a brewery out in the Dalles. We had that same Pathfinder prior to it still being sketchy. On the first Gambler, we stopped at the top of the San Am Pass to kind of look at maps. And while we're sitting there, the radiator blows up. And it's one of those plastic top radiators, and it just cracked right under the neck.
Okay.
And there was no radiator replacement within 100 miles, so we sent somebody down into Sisters to get epoxy. They came back, we epoxy it, let it set for an hour or whatever, and then try to drive it. It blew up again immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But so we met that guy, Steve. He stopped in his Lincoln, his like 70s Continental, that had 2 taps on the side. And because he owned the brewery, he had these crazy plastic kegs.
Oh my God.
And then they ran through a copper coil through ice to get to the tap, so you have cold beer coming out.
I know where this is going.
But so
Yeah.
while we're sitting there waiting for Buddy to come back with the epoxy, we're talking to Steve, and we're like, have you tapped those kegs yet? And he said, no, we haven't tapped them yet. We're going to wait till we get to Gambler Town. And so we're, all right, well, we'll see you later. And then we, hours later, after we finally just kind of gave up on this Pathfinder, start going down Highway 20 again, we see the Lincoln on the side of the road, and Steve's sitting out there in a camping chair drinking a beer.
Didn't make it far.
Blew a tire, blew a tire, and so he had to send somebody into the nearest Walmart to get a couple tires for it. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, but I don't know how we got there. But yeah, essentially, I would say if you're very mechanically inclined and you want to do it like proper, get a couple of friends, get a couple of shit boxes, and do it together. That's the best way to do it.
Support each other on the way.
Right.
Yep.
Doing the whole like trailer your car in and out kind of thing, like
It's kind of against the whole idea of the challenge.
There's a lot of people that do it, and because there's a lot of people that travel in for the event from
gotcha.
long distance.
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, like the safer, probably less stressful way to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like you're going to get the same experience as if you buy a hoopty and
sit on the side of the road waiting for help.
Yeah. Or beer. I mean, there's nothing like working on your car on the side of Highway 20.
Yeah. Good times right there.
Good times. Yeah.
Getting eaten by all those mosquitoes.
Semis flying by and blowing the car around.
Yeah. That's a great time. Love it. So let's go back to the Subaru a little bit. Would you recommend a Subaru as a project car?
That depends on what you want to do.
Of course. Say somebody wants a project car. Would you recommend a Subaru?
Don't expect community support. That would be the first thing I would say.
What?
The
Subaru community isn't strong?
God, the Subaru community is ass. Like, they
really
suck, man.
I love it.
They are the worst.
Yeah.
I really like, because they are the worst, like, Nazis about, like, in a group, if you ask a question, like, did you look at the pin post? It's like, fuck off, man. Like, I'm just asking for help.
Question,
It would take you just as much time to answer the question as it would to refer me to the pin post.
Right.
Yeah.
And
give me the link for the pin post,
exactly.
man.
Well, yeah, and typically
searching those things sucks.
If I'm asking for help, typically I'm not coming in with bullshit. Like, I'm not asking what oil to run, you know. It's generally something legit. So yeah, no, Subaru community sucks. I will say that 6 swap group has been phenomenal. It was really, like, refreshing to come to, like, have questions and people actually answer them. But as far as for a project car, and I mean, like I said, it depends on the person, depends on what you want to do, because when you're learning on them, they suck to work on, but once you're accustomed to them, they're not bad. I mean, that motor now with that setup, if I want to do spark plugs, I'm going to have to pull the motor. That's just...
Yeah, it's packed in there.
Like, and that's not even being sarcastic. That's like literally I would have to pull the motor to do spark plugs in that car.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Couldn't you just
made yourself an exotic and didn't even know it.
Yeah. Couldn't you just drill holes in, like, the fenders to get to them?
The frame rails, I could. Yeah,
The
sure.
frame rails, yeah.
Well, I had teachers back in Wyotech. They do that on, I think it was Barracudas. They used to do it too. And the wheel wells to access, like, the number 8 cylinder.
Wheel well's fine. He's talking about frame rail.
Yeah, frame rail wouldn't be good.
Fender well, big deal.
I mean, sure, you could literally hole saw through the frame rail and then put a pipe in there and weld on both sides. But at the same time, that's also relying on the motor mounts to stay in the same place forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's rough. But yeah, I mean, you've got a motor swap going on, which is a whole nother topic I want to get into. But, like, so is the return of... Yeah, you already said it depends on what you want, but having a Subaru as a project, is it worth the frustration? Or would you be better off with another platform?
What's the timeline looking like if you get just
That's
a
2 questions at once. Can you wait?
Oh, okay. God, I can't wait. I'm just so excited.
I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Is it worth the frustration?
I think so. I think so. I mean, for what I'm doing, that car is great. Because of the parts availability. That's the biggest thing to me. I started out, my first vehicle was a 84 Toyota pickup, straight axle, like, rock crawler truck.
Okay.
It was phenomenal, did amazing off-road, but if anything ever broke, finding parts for that truck sucked.
Gotcha.
Second vehicle, 86 Toyota Corolla. Same exact problem.
Really?
Yeah, like, if you want parts for an 86 Corolla, you can just fuck right off. Okay?
Just not going to happen.
I mean, if you can find them, you're going to have to buy from somebody who has them. You're not finding it in a scrapyard.
Wow.
And whoever has that thinks that what they have in their garage that's falling apart is gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That's project car shit for you almost.
You can blame initially.
We kind of talked about, like, the whole junkyard gold. Like, it's there for Subarus. It's all there. Go get it.
And
what's your question, Grant?
My question was, I thought, bouncing off of your question.
Okay, all right.
Which was, like, if you're getting a Subaru of any kind, what's the minimum, like, time you think you're going to be into it? Because if you're doing spark plugs, for example, that's an engine out. Not
because he did an engine swap.
Yeah.
So that engine was not supposed to be in that car.
Okay.
When the EJ22 was in it, the spark plugs were a 10-minute job.
Okay.
It's a matter of, with that motor, it was a matter of, like, learning what extensions with what wobblies you needed to use. And once you had that figured out, then it was
gold.
No
You
problem.
got it.
Okay.
So when you do spark plugs now, do you go ahead and cuddle that with head gaskets?
That's a valid question.
Yeah.
The motor's already out. You might as well do it.
Yeah.
What I've been told with that EZ30 is don't take anything apart you don't have to, because they, from the factory, are really good, and then once you start fucking with shit, that's when things go wrong.
Don't let the magic out of the box.
Yeah.
But going back to Subarus, like what are parts known to fail on them? What
head
Just
gaskets?
talked about the head gaskets.
other than that,
steering boxes are shit.
Spark plugs.
Oh yeah,
the clutches I know are small, so would they go out and you
Clutch?
go through? Like if someone's buying a Subaru, whether it's for rally where it's all across, what can you expect? Like I've got spent $1,000 on this. What am I going to start going to get it just straight to go?
Struts, axles, steering rack.
Okay,
the steering rack is going to be the most expensive.
Turbos.
Well, I don't deal with that. The biggest thing for me is I collect axles. I hoard them because it's
just know it's coming.
Well, it's also a matter of with that car now, because of the lift, I have to run Forester shafts with legacy stubs. So I can't just buy an axle and swap it in. I have to buy an axle, disassemble it, put it back together with different parts, and make it work.
Okay.
I hoard them so that I can just take them apart, build new ones to be ready to go in. There are things you can do. Like I know a guy who put Porsche axles in, but then you're spending thousands of dollars on one set of axles.
How much longer do they last?
We don't know yet. Yeah.
Because that's an offset. Like, am I going to do this multiple times and spend multiple times on the axles or whatever, or do you do them once with the Porsches? And
that's the thing. Yeah, I'm waiting to see how that goes, because if that's one and done, then I will eventually do the same for the fronts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think once I get to doing what I was talking about earlier with that crazy off-road Baja build, I think I'll more than likely try to figure out a way to put a straight axle in the rear. I think a straight axle 4-link would probably make more sense than trying to keep the IRS for off-road racing type stuff.
Interesting. I would think the IRS would be better just for
clearance.
Performance?
Performance.
But
performance, yes, but durability is going to be the issue.
Yeah, I get that.
You can find heavy-duty IRS systems.
You can, or you can put a straight axle in it and not worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
You can pull one off a Hummer.
Oh, man. I was
twice as wide as the car.
Yeah,
what? I was active duty Army for 8 years. I don't want anything to do with Hummers. They're dog shit. Portals would be sweet. Portals would be awesome. But I think the only way to do that right now would be using UTV portals. I think it'd be more realistic, because those Humvee ones are huge. They're enormous.
Yeah, they're giant and heavy.
And probably wouldn't take well to high RPM.
Yeah.
Either way. Axle struts. The clutch, I've been surprised with the clutch that's in it now. That's what's saving the rest of my drivetrain right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what's protecting all of those tiny components from that bigger motor.
A little bit of slip.
Yeah, because everybody talks about those 5 speeds being glass. I'm only on my second. And over 5 years of abuse, that's not bad for a transmission.
And what's the clutch out of?
It's the EJ22, the stock, the 95, 96 legacy.
So just the clutch, you go down to Napa and grab?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Amazon. Everything's Amazon nowadays.
That's what my Subaru
Napa actually sells on Amazon.
Yeah, Jeremy's grenaded pretty well when he had his car.
Oh, is that picture of that clutch?
See the gray cotton candy in there?
That's impressive, really. Yeah, no, you shredded that one. I've not had a ton of issues with clutches other than the first one that smoked. Typically, it was a matter previously of any time the trans was out that I would just throw a clutch at it just to be safe. But generally speaking, I don't have clutch issues. I mean, it slips now and again now, but that's, again, protecting the drivetrain.
Yeah.
I think... So we talked a little bit about gearing earlier, and that's going to be the next big hurdle, big hurdle, because of the weird drive, the weird ratios that Subaru uses as opposed to everyone else in the world. Right. There is supposedly out there in the ether a STI 6-speed that uses those 444 gears. And if I could get my hands on one of those, that would be the way to go, but then it would be an issue of what rear end to use.
Isn't that from the RB22 or something like that?
What?
The older Subarus. or RS22.
The
early 93, like racing before the STI.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Because that's what I saw. Is it was a rally spec transmission.
I think you're talking about the 2.2 RS.
Something like, it's like 93. I know because of initial date, but also like there's a guy in Bend who's got one, and there's only a couple that made it to US.
There's like the 22B or whatever. Yeah. I don't want to make myself out to be a Subaru expert because I'm not. That's the thing. I don't know that much.
You're looking it up as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fine. I mean, that's a project car guy, right? Just dive in and let's see what I can do to make it work. So, and not that you would know this, but if you change transmission, does that car have electronics that go along with that? And will they agree with a 6-speed rather than the 5-speed you have now?
So, yes, but not what you're thinking of.
Okay.
That's kind of something I've been burying in the back of my mind because that engine was never offered with a manual transmission. So there's already been some
overridden.
There's been trickery done to convince the car that everything's okay. So I don't think so much that would be the issue. It's more of those like adjustable center diff situations that I don't know how that would translate.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Something you'll dive into eventually.
Someday,
Or maybe the car does something else. You just never know by the time you get there.
Hey, this is a pretty...
We see shiny shit in turn directions all the time, right?
This is a pretty rust-free chassis. I think I'm going to hang with this one for a while.
Yeah, that's good. So, on the whole, and Grant kind of brought it up, what do you look for? What would you recommend if other people are looking into the Subaru that are like, hey, that's kind of cool, I want to do an off-road build. Use that as a base. What do you look for in like your base project car?
No rust.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
pre-99 is what you want because you want the 2.2.
Okay.
And you want the first gen 2.2 because the first gen EJ22 was non-interference.
Oh, okay.
And so that's my biggest thing is like
that was a belt driven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And after that, they're actually interference motor on a belt.
Yep.
Just like a Volkswagen.
Like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So bad. Ferrari too.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that would be the biggest thing. Honestly, just looking back at the older Subarus is the way to go if you're doing an off-road build anyways, just because everything is interchangeable. They're all Legos, like how that transmission will bolt up to pretty much I think all of the Subaru engines. So
oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So as the older you get with the Subarus, at least with the 90s cars for sure, all of those parts are interchangeable. And I think that generation, that second generation Legacy, where I think they started production of those in like 94, 93, 94, those are just the most prevalent. Those are what you see everywhere. The ones that are prior, the first gen Legacies aren't as common anymore. Mm-hmm. So those second gen Legacies are everywhere. So it's alluding back to the same thing where I'm saying like parts availability, because off-roading a Subaru, you're gonna break shit all the time.
They weren't necessarily built for heavy duty off-road. They were a light duty off-road vehicle, but you can do it. I mean, and like you said, it's fun.
Yeah.
And parts availability, junkyard's your friend, and all that stuff. I like that they're all interchangeable. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, just go find some shit. Hey, let's bolt this on there.
Well, and I mean, there's also an element of that too, where you get into like the Forester struts, how you can just take the strut off of a different car and throw it on there, and you got a lift. Like,
that's pretty damn.
Or
cool.
the opposite, you could do lowered. I actually had a friend in Pokemon take a Forester and lower it, and he was racing it.
Lowered it with what? Be specific, man.
I know. It's the not STI, WRX springs.
Okay.
So,
just a lower riding car.
Yeah.
Just took the same parts, they bolt right in, and you're off and running.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's the real big benefit of those cars is, and that again opens up your parts availability, because if I'm looking for a rear diff, or, well, rear diff's not a good example, but rear subframe, I don't need to go find a 95 Legacy. I can find, 97 Forester, 97 Outback, or whatever, anything similar.
It'll go right
It's going to have the same parts.
Yeah. Or the buffer brakes. Because when you do that, do you have to change the hubs out completely and stuff? And do they all match up, or what?
There are some differences. The first iteration of this car had the drum rears, and this one has disc rears. But for the most part, it's the same, and that even translates over to like there's a lot of parts availability to go to like big brakes. Like I'm in the process right now of collecting the parts to do the big brakes on this one, but the big thing is I have one of the calipers. I'm ready to buy the other caliper, but I can't run the calipers until I get 17-inch wheels, and I've got a lot of meat left on those tires, so it's going
to be a while.
It's going to be a little while, yeah.
That's interesting. You had drum brakes on the rear of it to begin with, transferred over to the disc. What kind of setup at the front of the car did you have to make that work? Because
jeez.
And then
come on. That's major party foul. Now you have to go get us all beer.
Jeremy.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if we want to take a quick pause, I'm ready to be honest.
Yeah, we can do that.
Sorry.
No worries. Cool. Oh, we're going. All right.
We were talking about brakes before the break.
Yes, brakes before the break.
You echoed, Jeff.
Okay.
I feel like you had something there, Rob. I thought there was something.
I probably did. There was. Okay.
Action.
Putting disc brakes on the back of that car where it went from drums. So, like, I'm familiar with Corvette braking situation. Sounds like an airplane flying over the...
We are in the flight path.
All the anti-lock brake system runs into one module.
Yeah.
How does that work for a Subaru?
So, in this situation, because I was merging two platforms, the 96 and the 95, I just kept all of the factory brake stuff from the 95 on it, and that was the one with the disc brakes.
Okay.
And so nothing changed with like the master cylinder or anything at the wheels, but because of the wiring for the O2, I did take the ABS module out of that car. And so the plumbing, I did have to do some research to figure out which lines go where. And I still have an ABS light, but I think that's because... So the normal 95, 96 Legacies didn't have stability control. For whatever reason, the one I have does or did.
Interesting.
So it had wheel speed sensors, which is unusual for that car.
Oh, wow.
And so I did some cutting and splicing to wire those wheel speed sensors into the new wiring harness. And I don't think it took. And I think that's why I have an ABS light, and the ABS doesn't work.
I was going to ask if you mashed the brakes and tested it.
I have.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
They lock up.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think I'm going to try out the O2. I'm going to see if I can plug the O2 wheel speed sensors into the 95 hubs and see if that works. But
are the hubs the same size? Like, because there's different splines them.
I don't know.
Okay.
And that's why I haven't gotten there. Because I don't know if they're the same or how they read or anything. So.
Yeah, because it'll be interesting, especially with the bigger wheels. It'll be moving slower. So if the computer reads that, they're not going at the same speed or not matching the speed that the transmission put out, it could be just start like acting really funky and trying to lock up. Right, Jeremy? Looks like he's thinking about that.
I don't know if I agree with that because the tire width or the tire heights are all the same, right?
Yeah, and then you would think that would be an issue with modern cars if you put bigger tires on them, if that was the case.
Yeah,
but if the computer's calibrated for a smaller wheel, though, on it?
Yeah, but you don't put the same size tire on every time you
That's
replace
not what
the
it's
tires.
reading. It's usually reading something on the hub itself. So
it's
you've
a
either got
sensor.
You've either got a magnet or you've got studs that it's passing, so the sensor itself is a magnet. It's reading a metal stud as it passes. So it doesn't care what size rim or wheel or tire you have on it.
That makes sense. Yeah. But it still would matter also if the later 2002 one had a different hub size for the Hall effect sensor, right? Like there was a different count of teeth?
No, not necessarily, no. Well, maybe a different count.
Yeah.
Most of them don't care how many passes.
It just needs on, off, on, off.
Basically, it's on, off. But, I mean, they could have some kind of programming that's looking for 10 counts instead of 5 or,
And then there's always the possibility there to merge the hubs, take parts out of one hub, put them into the other. The actual like spindle itself assembly is different because the later model Outbacks, I think it's like a wishbone style. I don't think it's the same trailing. It's not the same trailing arm style suspension at least. So I couldn't just take might be able to take the whole subframe. I don't know. it's all, Frankenstein stuff regardless.
So if the ABS isn't working on, have you had to put in a manual like brake bias onto it to change how much is going front and rear?
Pull your mic in.
Okay.
Please.
How much is going front and rear?
Oh, that's beautiful. You sound so good.
Thank you.
This is not a priority, to be honest with you right now. And the brakes work is the thing. Like those tires are so much bigger than the factory tires, and they're
hard to lock up.
The fact that they can lock up speaks to like I don't need to worry about
that's
it.
Valid too. Yeah.
I've been able to stop that car in a hurry when I needed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. So, what are your thoughts on engine swapping? Because we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but engine swapping a Subaru chassis with an entirely different brand motor, and not LS. I mean, that's the one-off big bullshit stuff. It's fun to see, but not something everybody's going to do.
Put like a Honda motor.
But put a Honda motor or Toyota or something.
This is something I've considered because like the F20 would be awesome, but the cost of doing like an F20 would be ridiculous. I don't.
That F20C, the 2000 Honda 2000.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I mean that's a great swap for any platform. Realistically, that was a big thing for the Corollas when I had that A86. But again, that was even back then. It was $10,000-$15,000 just for the drivetrain with the engine. Like absurd money for
sure. But there are cheaper options. I mean, we talked to like Josh that wanted to do that K20 swap or something, right?
K20 and K24 swap, as we've talked about,
right? And those are much more affordable.
Well, then when we talk about swapping different engines into Subarus, like the first place my brain goes, because I have gambler fog, is I start thinking like, well, 22R would be pretty fun, but
sure, yeah.
But there's no point, like,
right.
I was actually thinking that Ford Ranger motor, the old,
the 4-cylinder one,
2.3,
2.3 liter.
Yeah,
I mean that was a pretty good little.
I think they're decent. Nothing special.
Yeah.
Probably get it pretty cheap.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say I've seen some swaps. Like, so there's a tangent, but leads to this.
Okay.
There's a kit car that they make called the 818, and that uses a Subaru running chassis as its base, and they go from engine swaps using the normal 2.5 at the time, all the way to EcoBoost 4 motors will fit into it, and so I'm not sure if that's an easy swap, but I know that's been done and is recommended by the company.
Okay. Is there a question there?
My question was, like, have you heard anything about that? Like, ever thought about an EcoBoost?
No, thank you.
Okay.
That's the polite way of saying it. Yeah.
I get it. It's a Ford.
We could talk
Ford
about
guy. Anyone?
My family of origin's all Chevy folks, so that's a hard pass for me.
We could talk about Sam Albert's Subaru that he built.
I don't know who that is.
So Sam Albert, he's a rally racer from Spokane, I believe.
Okay.
He's got a Ferrari V8.
Oh, yeah.
In a Subaru?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's
You mean the BRZ,
talk
right?
About money.
It's a WRX.
I mean, I'd love to have a Ferrari engine to put in my GMC too, but...
Should we put one in there? I can show you where to find them cheap.
We did find one on the coast not that long ago.
A Ferrari motor.
And it was cheap, yeah. It was like a couple grand.
That's odd.
We'll talk after the show. I'll give you over a couple grand.
You'll give me a...
No, true. If you go to eBay... Well, it depends. Okay.
It wasn't on eBay. It was.
Well, I know, but if you're trying to find a Ferrari motor for cheap, best way is go to eBay and look up Maserati motors because they're so cheap and they're the same engine, just detuned. You can get it for like $1,300 to $2,000.
I don't know. I should just stick with the 12-cylinder.
Yeah. Jag motor.
Brendon, do you think you should put a 12-cylinder in the GMC?
In GMC?
Yeah, an old GMC
it was on
pickup.
here, but yeah.
Oh.
That GMC half-ton.
I mean, that'd be really cool.
See?
Yeah.
Telling you, Rob.
I mean, it would piss a lot of people off, and that's why I would like it, to be honest with you.
I don't think it would, really.
It's better to be pissed off than pissed on.
Yeah.
Valid. We need to get that motor over to my house so I can start tearing into it. Anyway,
I think
back to...
Ultimately, with a Subaru, what you're going to run into is space for an engine, because anything that's going to be more powerful ultimately is going to be so far ahead of the front axle. Like if you're talking like 2JZ, for example, like, 'cause that's, everybody wants to swap a 2J. That's going to be a mile. It's going to be in front of the car. Like nothing's going to fit.
Gotcha.
So you're looking at a 4-cylinder, and at that point, why swap a different 4-cylinder.
Why go away from the brand?
Do you think that's why most Subaru builders just throw a bigger turbo and call it a day?
If you're looking for more power.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if a Porsche motor would be more realistic.
That is a really strong point.
Yeah.
Subaru builders, I don't know too much. I don't understand the building the EJ25, that it's so commonly done, but it's so commonly blown up. They're always blown up. They're just, I don't know. I don't want to talk out of my ass here.
Why not? We do.
I've had two EJ25s. They were both single cam, so they're not like the hot rod motor, but they both blew up.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really like the direction I've gone with that flat six. I think that's a strong motor. And I think the Subaru 4-cylinders are just not my jam.
Sure.
I think that Porsche swap would be really rad. I think that'd be super cool.
They're a pancake 4 or 6, depending on the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in theory, it should fit.
Right. I don't know dimensions wise, and that's where you run into the problem realistically, with mine, where it's just shoehorned in there.
It seems like the Porsche motor is wider than your engine bay, but maybe it's because that's only from visual. I have no real idea, but then you also be kind of cool.
You also run into the issue there where you're going to have to modify bell housing, so you're going to have a machine shop.
Somebody's done it.
Yeah,
somebody's done it.
Oh, I know a guy.
Yeah.
Advanced adapters might have them, right? We'd have to look, but
Lee Parsons owns High Voltage Garage up out of Winlock, Washington, and it's like an 86, 87 GL wagon that he put onto a 80s, it's like a 70s Toyota 4x4 frame. And then he put that same engine that I have, the EZ30, into the GL. And so he has essentially a Toyota with a Subaru body with a Subaru engine, but with 529 gears and 35s.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah. That's quite the build.
It's a part, and dual cases. It's a party.
Wow. Oh, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. And he helped me a lot when I was working through some of the issues with that engine swap.
No, it's cool. That's good that you've got community to help you. You're pretty well connected, honestly. Just from the
I got a
30 minutes I've talked to.
Decent background.
Yeah, decent background. I think the last thing, I'm sure Grant could go on forever, but in the marketplace for that type vehicle, the Subaru, the Forester, the whatever, is there any competition for that car? What other brands are in that market?
Are you talking like new vehicles? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Well, even in the recent
the 8.6
10 years, the 8.6.
Yeah, because there's the BRZ and the 8.6.
Right. Okay, but
so what are we building it for? I guess.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the Forester range, right? Or what's the Legacy?
It's a challenge because so the Legacy is being discontinued, but as far as the Forester, if we're talking about the Forester Outback platform, it's hard to because we just finished car shopping. My wife got the Lexus RX 450.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
And we were in a situation of I couldn't convince her to buy a Subaru because she didn't want it, and she didn't want a 4Runner, but we needed something that was all-wheel or four-wheel drive and reasonably priced. And
Lexus was reasonable?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Right. So in comparison with
brand new or used? Because used. Okay, yeah. Used, they're pretty decent priced.
All right, cool.
And it's a Toyota, so it's got some reliability.
Exactly. And that was why we landed on it, was because everything now in that range they're all hybrids. They're all hybrids, and almost all of them are that what's the word for it?
Same shape.
Well, it's like this part-time all-wheel drive where it doesn't kick on the all-wheel drive until it detects slip, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So we were kind of button heads for a while as far as finding something comparable. And like you look at like a Toyota RAV4, if you want something that has the features that the Lexus we got has, you're looking at something that's within the last 3 years realistically. So it's $40,000+.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's not realistic. So there's not a whole lot of good competition right now in like the newer car market for like a Forester Outback type situation.
It's interesting that you bring up the RAV4 because just looking at cars, you know, you see Subarus in this area all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
The RAV4 is the same car.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And it wouldn't surprise me if it comes off the same assembly line because Toyota and Subaru are in bed together. That's obvious. But the other cars like Forester Outback, CRV, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Toyota is super similar to the Subaru stuff, but outside of that, I don't really know that there's any competition for the Subaru.
What about the Bronco Sport? Would that be considered in there?
I don't think so, no, because that's more the SUV. That's an SUV line.
So
and while the Subaru is quote unquote sort of an SUV,
yeah, it's more of a crossover.
it is more of a crossover.
And we didn't want a Ford Escape.
So,
right.
What about the Volvo station wagon?
We did look at actually we looked at the Volvo, the SUV, and they are dope.
Yeah.
I really liked it a lot. I was actually leaning that direction, and the wife pulled the other way.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning?
I don't know. I don't remember what her.
Because he liked it. That's why.
I think
That's
probably.
typically what it is,
Yeah.
If you
She's
gotta
never going to hear this, so it's okay.
You got to try the reverse psychology thing. Like, I mean, it's okay.
I was trying to get her to look at the Macan, but she.
Yeah. Brendon, I got a question then. Because you guys were looking for all-wheel drive and looking for an SUV, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And why was electric ever on the table?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think electric cars are the future like everyone says they are.
Yeah.
I love this guy.
Oh, now I know why you picked him.
Yep.
we had a
He's on my side.
long discussion about this at work today because I mean obviously I guess we'll come back to the fact that I'm in the performance industry, but
No, this is a great segue. Let's get into it.
Because it's not a realistic move right now.
Mm-hmm.
The range, the reliability, the build quality, there's like it's just not there. I mean, I'm sure the Germans are doing the best of anybody. But I mean, the thing is, I don't understand why they're not pouring money into like having electrically driven vehicles with a diesel or gas generator motor,
Basically a hybrid motor.
Yeah.
Ford is going that direction.
But fully electrically driven.
Yeah. So there's a car that
Ford's
did that.
going that way.
Yeah.
There's a car that did that years ago. It was built here somewhere. I wish I could remember the name of it. Basically, it had a turbine motor, turbine engine that generated the power for the electric drivetrain.
Yeah.
I think I've heard about that.
On like 20 gallons or 15 gallons of fuel, it would go hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
I agree with you, and I think that's the way it should be going. And I hope that more manufacturers see that.
Mm-hmm.
The only way full electric is going to work is if they make the batteries exchangeable. Like if you make it so you go to a battery station and they swap it out.
That was the original
plan.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I remember they were saying you had a station you go and then lower your vehicle and then put a new one in within 2 minutes.
Well, here's what it is. I mean, they could make that into a subscription service and make a shitload of money off of it. Mm-hmm. But frankly, it's far more profitable to make disposable cars.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. They can make way more money off of it if they just make it so you have a car that's going to last 100,000 miles and then the battery's going to shit out.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
and charge you $30,000 for another battery.
Yeah. Well,
or throw the car away.
They're just get another car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
really what it means. But they're charging $100,000 for the car, so $30,000 for a new battery doesn't look as bad.
But yeah, if they go to more hybrid design, they wouldn't need such a big battery. And that would make it easier for the environment. That'd make it a cheaper car.
Bingo.
I think what's really telling about the market is look at what Honda and Toyota are doing. Because they're not dumping money into full electric cars.
No.
And that should have been the indicator from the beginning was, I mean, when, the German manufacturers or American cars are all saying, oh yeah, we're going to do what the government wants us to do. Sweet.
Right.
and now realizing like, oh, this is not sustainable. This is not going to work.
Companies saw Tesla's profits and they wanted to get a part of that.
Now, I see what you did here, and it pisses me off.
What?
Fucking electric cars.
I wasn't trying to go there. No, originally the original thing was because you're talking about
Brendon.
what you and your wife wanted for an SUV.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
All-wheel drive, especially being an electric car, they're always all-wheel drive, right? And so, like,
No, they're not.
No.
Mm-mm.
No, the cheaper ones are two-wheel drive.
The dual motor ones, let's say. Those are always...
Dual motors are all-wheel drive.
Yes, that's
not
what I meant.
all of them
Not
are all-wheel
necessarily.
drive.
Okay, but I'm
Not
saying...
necessarily. They call a dual motor can have a motor on each front wheel.
Oh, really?
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
So the dual motors you're speaking of are all-wheel drive.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. The original thing was you were talking about SUVs, and that's why I was like, would that, because that would meet your requirements. But again, it was an electric vehicle, not a gas vehicle. That's what I was wondering, like, why it wasn't that considered by you and your wife.
Well, and I mean, it's just from a price point perspective, they don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, even if you could get one for the same price as a normal car, like, the charging price is not as cheap as people think it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's
gone up, too.
It is.
Substantially.
Yeah. So, no, it was not a consideration at all. And I don't foresee it being one anytime soon.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Done with Subarus.
Segueing into performance. That's what you were saying.
Let's talk about what you do
So I talked
for a living, not what you do for fun, but somebody's got to pay the bills.
I talked a little. That's the wife.
Oh, cool! Damn, how do I get that job?
I talked a little bit earlier about that shop that I worked at called Forge Performance, and at the time, John Pham was working out of the back of Forged. He was manufacturing parts. He was doing work for them, but mostly he was kind of doing his own stuff, building manifolds. And he approached me in like the spring of the year that I had been working at Forged. And I was there on an internship for school when I was in high school. And he approached me and he said, look, these guys aren't really compensating you for your time. Like, if you want to make some money, swing by my shop. Or no, it wasn't even swing by my shop. At the time, it was swing by Forged this Sunday and I'll have some work for you. And so he had me porting and polishing manifolds for a few weekends, and then he pulled me aside and was like, look, in a few months here, we're going to open up our own shop. If you want to come be a part of that, you're welcome to come. And so Dock Race opened in 2011, I want to say, and originally I was just there porting and polishing manifolds, and then it turned into, hey, do you want to do some welding? And I was, yeah, I want to do some welding, and did some welding for him, and then turned into, do you want to start mocking up manifolds? And started doing that. And so by the time I left Dock Race, I was building full manifolds, and it was just it came to a point where I'd been working there for a few years and I wasn't making enough money to really like get by. And so that was when I said, fam, like basically I'm tapped out. I joined the army.
Wow.
And so I left for a decade, and I hit him up a few months ago actually and was like, hey, like not even about work. It was just like, hey, let's get together. Let's talk. And so after a few attempts of like, hey, are you doing this weekend or whatever? And it was no. So we missed our chances to hang. And then finally I was like, you know what, actually, like it kind of makes sense to go back and work there since he's real flexible. And so the last couple weeks I've been working back at Dock. When I started at Dock Race, back in 2011, we were focused mostly on Toyota, Honda, Mazda, some Nissan stuff. I think the main seller back then was like 2JZ turbo headers. And so that was kind of how we got pulled into the drift community. And I mean, I was kind of I already had that Corolla, so I was already sliding that car. And I mean, it was a shitbox. It was a SR5. It wasn't the fast one. It wasn't the cool one.
Okay.
It was the single cam 1.6 with the open diff.
Just enough to get you out there.
And I mean, that car taught me a lot because you had to work. You really had to work to slide that car. And so I learned a lot driving on that car. And, so through Dock Race, I got to do a lot of cool shit as far as going to like Formula D events as vendors and like hanging out with drivers and doing cool stuff there. And so I disappear for a decade, come back. Dock Race is like, we're not doing drift shit anymore.
Oh, really? Wow.
I'm out.
Why did sudden change? Did it tell you?
It wasn't sudden. I mean, it was over the course of the decade.
He was gone for a decade.
Well, true. Okay. That was the gradual change.
Yeah. and I mean, it's part of it's profit driven, but then there's a part of it that's the clientele that you're working with.
It's image driven.
Part of it's image, for sure.
Yeah.
The big thing that kept me at Doc Race for as long as I was there, not making shit for money when I was that our business strategy was we're going to make the best shit we can make.
Yeah.
And we're going to have the best product, whether that makes sense or not, essentially at the time. And we did. We made world-class products and we shipped all over the world and it was awesome. And so that was part of the transition, I think, in this period. And so now we specialize in BMW stuff, a lot of N54 stuff. To be very blunt about it, I don't know anything about BMWs. I know the N54 engine, and that's about it.
They have no blinkers.
Yeah, no turn signals whatsoever.
German cars.
No, they have turn signals. They just don't have the switch. But regardless, we still have the Gallardo twin turbo kit listed on the website. I don't know if I don't think we're producing it anymore. I think there's probably still some parts laying around. I don't know if we're selling it or not.
That's not the same kit that Tavares used on his Lambo, was it?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Because I wasn't around for the development or sales of that product. But I know Fam still got the Lambo.
Nice.
But that's not his race car. He's got an E90 that he drifts. It does track racing. And that seems to be the majority of the clientele.
Yeah.
He has noted, and I listened to episode 7 where you're talking about how the cheap drift platforms, and it does sound like BMWs are starting to fall into that market.
A little bit,
yeah. So there are some folks, and that was how we started with BMWs was Mike Essa in his E46 M3 that made 600 plus horsepower out of that N54. That was a rad build.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I think of Doc Race, I think of Fam's Supra because that was our flagship car back in the day. God, I don't remember the manufacturer, but he showed me the new engine. It's this 3.4 stroker engine he's got into it. And it's got two, they look like they were at least 35R equivalent. I think he runs all precision turbos now, but big turbos, 2 big turbos on it.
Yeah, making all kinds of power.
Well, I said, so he hasn't got it running with that engine yet. Oh. And I was like, so what kind of power are you thinking you're going to make out of this? And he's like, well, block's rated for 2,000 horsepower.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know when that car is going to get back together. There's kind of a lot of projects scattered right now, development of new BMW products. And I asked him the other day, are you looking to branch out from that market? And he said, no, I think I'm just going to stick with this. This is our niche. This is going well. We're going to hang here.
Found a good spot.
Yeah. And I think what happened with the Lambo stuff is it just more or less guys who were building Lamborghinis aren't going out buying a turbo kit and then installing it. They're just taking their Lambo to a shop and saying, hey, make it faster. So
100%. That's what they're doing.
It's not a big seller.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's probably not a huge market either. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Gallardo, I wouldn't be surprised to see in the future sales pick up on that product, but because there were so many of those produced and they're starting to become more affordable.
They're 75,000 low end.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, given
it's cheap for Lambo market.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also a decent engine that's, I would argue, say reliable. Would you know anything about that?
I couldn't speak on it. I mean, but I assume it's an Audi engine. So it's
those V10s, there's not much that I've heard wrong with them.
Is that the same engine they put in the R8?
I think so.
Of the same year,
yeah,
I would assume.
The 2008 one, because originally it was a V8 in the R8. They eventually put the V10 into it.
Yes.
I believe the block and the actual engine is the same, but I know there's differences between it. But powertrain should be the same.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
But, I mean, that's as far as my knowledge goes on it, is it's got a Lambo engine in the R8, so and it's a V10.
Yeah, but kind of like the V10.
And if I had one, that's the one I would want.
Kind of like the V10 that's in the R or the A6, which is the sedan version. Those are based off the Lambo engine, but detuned, right, Jeremy? And you and me did some research on it a while ago.
I don't remember.
But they make only 450 horses rather than 500 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, only 450.
Only 450.
It's not very much.
Not out of a 10-cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just speaking to what you were talking about there with the connections that I've made, like that's primarily how that's come to be. Is you know, I mean,
performance shops.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
cool.
I was with Doc for, I mean, those first few years where we were really pushing like marketing hard because it was a new business.
Yeah, and trying to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we were, I mean, shit, I remember being at Irwindale for the Formula D like finals one year, and Daigo Saito comes over and like starts looking at a manifold that I made and like trying to like talk about it, but his English, he doesn't speak any English really, and so it was just so cool to just be this 18-year-old kid like, yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
You like that?
I want
cool.
that. Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. That's really cool.
But then at the same time back then we were also, I mean, not just Formula D, it was just kind of the Wild West back then too, because I mean,
for sure, it was brand new.
Yeah, I mean, we were.
Well, actually, it wasn't brand new, but I mean, it was early days.
I remember like partying on the track, like like the night before qualifying, or like shit. We would do like air quotes field trips essentially after work. Like let's go hit Crown Point. Let's go to Germantown. Let's go, hit these mountain roads.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, just having a great time. I mean, it was a really incredible experience, and got to meet some really awesome people. And I expected fully like come in here today just because it's like the second week I've really been working back at that shop to be like, well, I'm still really kind of paying my dues, because the first week it was like, all right, clean up the shop.
Get back in the swing of it.
Do a dump run. But no, today he was like, all right, let's start welding. And I was like,
nice.
All right.
Right on.
10 years later, back in the seat.
Back in it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And he's already, like I said, he's already started like alluding to like, you could put a turbo on that car. Like, we've got turbos laying around.
The Subie's going to be in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't work on cars. I should make that abundantly clear. That's always been his strategy. Is we don't work on cars. We build
sell
parts.
the parts for them. No, that's valid. I mean, you got to draw a line somewhere. Otherwise, you just get inundated with too much shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the first shop we were over off 82nd and Foster. And I mean, it was fucking
I know where
sketchy.
That's at.
But it had a big bay door to come in and bring cars in. And I mean, we always had to load it up with our own cars. But then the second shop, he was very methodical about the place that he found, because there was a shop door, but it was a loading bay. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted your car in the shop, you had to come in on a trailer or like on a flatbed, big flatbed.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and that was strategic to be like, we're not.
Yeah, we don't take it.
Yeah.
We don't work on cars.
No.
Yeah.
Here's the parts.
Yeah.
See you later. Take them to somebody else to put them on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now, I mean, like I said, it's all BMW stuff now, and I think he's more or less just like when he wants to build a turbo kit for something, he buys the car and builds a turbo kit.
Is there a lot of R&D, and maybe you can talk about it, maybe you can't, but in that aspect, if it's a new vehicle, something you've not built, a turbo kit or headers, whatever you got going, what kind of R&D goes into that? Like, you just mock one up, put it together, and see how it goes, or?
I mean, more or less, yeah. I mean, it's kind of his strategy's always been make the product as tight as possible, so that way you're accommodating whatever platform it's going to be in.
Yeah.
Being that we're in this BMW market now, that's not so much the case, I don't think. I don't think it has to be, I should say.
They've got a little more room to work?
Not necessarily. It's more just that like the products that are being designed and put out are car specific.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Versus being like the 2J manifolds, where it's like we need it against the block, so that way if somebody puts it into a Mini Cooper, like it's going to fit.
Gotcha. So instead of multi-use, it's specific to...
Right. Okay. And we used to be more like focused towards, let's make a manifold for this engine, or let's make this intake manifold. Now it's more of, let's build this turbo kit so it can be sold as a full product
for this vehicle.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so when you do that, do you put it all together and take it to the dyno and see how it goes and try to tune it? Or do you have to sometimes come back and make tweaks to the way it's built?
That I am not sure of, because I haven't been around long enough. Right, I mean, I'm sure I'm sure they are going to the dyno.
Yeah.
I don't know who he's using for that right now. But I know back early days of the development of the BMW products, if you guys remember Horsepower Freaks,
yeah,
they did a lot of BMW stuff locally. Yeah. And so it was originally kind of a partnership with them, essentially. Okay. I think even he had like sold a design for one of the manifolds to them for them to make essentially a cast version to sell. Okay. And so yeah, there was a lot of the R&D was assisted essentially.
Sure.
With Horsepower Freaks.
Yeah, I can see how it would be very beneficial to have a partner in that, that has dynos or has, experience with putting that stuff together and how it should run and how it should be tuned and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, very beneficial partnership.
That was it was a good partnership too, because they were kind of in the same lane of like, let's just, sure, we can make some normal, like easy to throw together kits, or let's do, did you ever see like their stage 4, stage 5 cars that they built? I'm not a big fan of these like stage builds, but that was essentially what you would do is take your E46 to them and say, okay, I want the stage 2, or here, you want the stage 4? Okay, give me $50,000, and then you're going to get your car back with 1,000 horsepower and a cage and everything you need.
Right. Yeah.
And those cars were just ludicrous.
Yeah, they were just insane. But I mean, people with money to burn, why not?
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. Here you go kill yourself. Knock yourself out, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a question. Do you guys use any 3D printing, or does that come into like any of the work you guys do?
No, that's not
like for helping mock up or anything like that.
I could see it being beneficial for future products, but currently, I mean, I won't get too in detail with our mock-up process, but I mean, as far as it's the same for any manufacturer, really, where you just kind of build a jig. And,
What about when it comes to 3D metal printing? Like when those become more available, could you see that being used?
I have not seen that. I'm going to have to look that up. No.
Oh, it's so 3D printing. You know how they use the plastic?
Yeah.
So they use just like welding as it goes through and builds up a thing that way. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
I have a hard time. Well, I don't know as far as that goes, because I mean, like for a while, Doc was selling some cast manifolds, and sure, it's cost effective, but for performance reasons, it's not ideal. And
a lot of people don't want cast. They don't want the look of cast.
Right.
You want the bright, shiny, even if it's got the burnished colors of heat treating and that kind of stuff on it. But the cast is not pretty.
Well, and a tubular manifold's always going to be more efficient. Like it's always going to flow better than a cast manifold.
Yeah. It would be really hard to get in or polish that well enough to.
Right.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. So I mean, but at the same time, like with a 3D printer, you could achieve similar flow rates, I assume.
I don't know. I don't know how well they work. It doesn't seem efficient to me.
Like, for example, Koenigsegg uses 3D printing for their turbos because they make objects that you just can't get by machining or getting in with tools.
Interesting.
And so, like, by doing that, like, say, like on a head or a manifold or something like that, you can make a design or a flow or venturi that you just can't get in with,
you can't physically produce another way.
But then that also comes to the question of, is this cost effective to the manufacturer, and or does that translate to the consumer, essentially?
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything Koenigsegg makes is one-off. So,
true.
I mean,
but I know, like, eventually, like, at some point we're going to get to the point where 3D printing will be like owning a printer at home. Not to that sale, but like a company that
I understand what you're saying.
Will be able to make economically, something and make it at a economic of scale. Where they can make so many and sell it at a cheaper price.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. It will definitely be a change.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same about 3D printers as I do about electric cars, but nice. I mean that's more because I'm of a dinosaur.
Yeah.
In that mentality.
You're taking the stance more of craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Instead of computer aided build.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with you. I'd rather put it together myself and build it from scratch than have a computer print it out for me.
Yeah, but if you're modeling that like in a 3D space on a computer, Like the VR software we have.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, like, somebody is still designing it on a computer. Yes, there's a lot of aid. I'm with him as in hand built, actually by hand. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And yes, there is a place for it, and we can't stop it. But you know, we can still prefer hand built.
And at the same time, I mean, if you're hand building a tubular manifold, sorry to cut you off, but I mean, if I'm building a manifold, I have eyes on every step of the procedure, and I can tell you where there are faults. I can just cut those faults out. I can correct for whatever issues there could be. I can port while it's still apart. So it's
potentially more perfect.
Potentially. I mean, there's certainly. I think you're correct. I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, about them being able to make things we can't make by hand, essentially. But
so I see them being a good tool for even building the fixture, right? So you could almost mock it up, build the first one in 3D, out of plastic or whatever. Not that you're going to put it on and run it, but then you take that and build your fixture so that you can actually, build 100 of them.
You build like
your jig.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
You could certainly build a more precise jig. That's for sure. Yeah. I think that's kind of what you were getting at in the first place. And I think that would be, I don't know. I don't know if that would be helpful or not, because then that kind of constrains you in certain places. Because you do need a little wiggle room when you're manufacturing something like that, because there's going to be minor differences in runner lengths, or angles throughout the manifold. I mean, you could definitely make it so that you could have a more precisely exactly the same product every time off the line.
Yeah.
But that would also create challenges in the fabrication process.
Yeah. Interesting thing about, technology, is it good, bad, indifferent,
Yeah.
It helps us in some places, and some places maybe not so much.
Well, and so my stepdaughter's dad, he's also a fabricator, and he does like hot rod stuff. And his specialty is like, I don't even know if I want to say specialty, but he's really phenomenal with like bodywork type stuff. And he uses 3D printing a lot to make stuff. Yeah, to make products. And the stuff he's able to do with the 3D printer to like remake parts for classic cars that wouldn't exist otherwise. Like
specifically plastic parts.
Right.
Yeah. Consoles, dashes.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's a huge leap in the technology from what we had.
Yeah, I think, honestly, now that you bring it up, that's a really good place for it, because those parts they're hard to come by.
Yeah.
Super hard to come by. I don't know. I'm sure there's some manufacturers out there that build replacement dash parts, but they're probably few and far between and really expensive.
Right.
So,
right.
That's interesting. So, moving on just a little bit, you kind of brought up at your shop, maybe you've got some extra parts laying around for a Gallardo or this or that, right? So, we all do this at home to a degree as well. We've got shit laying around. How much is too much? How much hoarding of parts is too much? And this is really more on a personal level. Every business has a degree of that as well, because, that's expensive parts you're not just going to pitch in the dumpster.
Maybe not.
No, some do. Yes.
It all depends on what it is. Because sure, we've got a shitload of stainless that needs to go to scrap right now.
Yeah.
That at one point would have been usable parts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, at what point does it start impacting the business to have that shit in the way? Yeah.
Yeah. And can you really use it, and will you really use it, and under what circumstance?
Yeah.
Right? So does it make sense to hold on to it?
You can only do so much with parts that are already manufactured.
Yeah.
So I guess that question kind of boils down to whether you're talking about a business or whether you're talking about a personal shop.
Yeah. it does. But even our home lives are impacted by squirreling away space.
The reason you have a garage is because not only is the car there, but every other part for the car.
Yeah. And the multiples that that you think you might need in the future, you come across, because I've got a bunch of that stuff, right? Yeah. Will I ever use it? Don't know, but I got it.
I wish I had the land to just collect those legacies.
Those pieces, yeah, right.
But
I've got 6 of them, so I got every part I need for a while.
for the time being, I only collect parts that I know I'm going to expend quickly, like axles, or parts that are, I don't want to say expensive, but like the steering rack, where it's going to be, $100 or more.
Yeah, or more difficult to find in the future. Do you look for that too?
I don't know. Because, there's...
Not yet, but you will now.
Well, for me, it's more a matter of like those expendable parts like the steering racks, where I would rather devote the time to adapt a different steering rack that's going to last longer than try to collect all of the steering racks in the world.
Sure. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
My thought process with that one is I'm looking at doing like Pathfinder steering rack just to see if it holds up better.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Find a way around it so you're not hoarding parts for it.
Yeah.
So we're finding your limit. That's what we're doing. It's like, how much shit do you want to squirrel away?
Right. Well, I got in this horrible habit from my dad, really, where anytime I modify one of my cars, I got to keep the factory parts in case I ever want to sell it.
I know. Isn't that terrible?
I've gotten better over the years, but I've still got the fucking the plastic skid. It's not a skid plate, but the under part of the car for my Crosstrek sitting in my attic. Like,
what am I
one day when I unload that car, I'm going to take that primitive skid plate off and try to sell it. No.
I'm like the worst. I always keep like a bunch of factory parts, but it's even if I don't have the cars or the vehicles there, I'll somehow figure a way to put them into another project, especially interior pieces.
Well, let me tell you, the Gambler project cars are a great way to break that habit, because you're like, I'm never going to use this shit again. Just throw it away.
Just get rid of it.
I'll keep nuts and bolts, but if it comes off the car, it's going in the trash if I can't use it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a mix of both. Some shit I realize that, I'm not going to use that. And maybe I know somebody that might want or need, I'll offer it up, and then it goes away.
Rob, you're never going to use it, and yet your stereos are in all your cars.
Not all of them. Not all of them.
Well, the Chevy's not there. The GMC's not done yet, so, that makes sense.
That one, yep. I actually don't know if there's a radio in there or not. But beside the point, I don't know. Like, I've pulled out some radiator fans and stuff like that. I know where those are sitting on the shelf. Will I ever reuse them? Probably not. But I have them.
Anything of value, I put up usually for free on like local Subaru groups or whatever, and say, hey, if you want it, come pick it up. Yeah. And then if it doesn't go away in a week or two, then it goes in the garbage. Yeah. Like that's where I'm at with it at this point.
Yeah. I probably gained the hoarder habit a little bit from, 1, my dad, 2, the business that I have been in for 7 years, because you realize some of those parts are really hard to get.
Yeah.
So you squirrel them away a little bit,
Yeah.
I've gotten better over the years. You move a couple of times, you get tired of moving that shit, so you start throwing it away. But you got to break that habit.
Yeah.
I'll bet Grant has a pretty large contingent of...
What are you doing this weekend? You should come to the shop.
I'm working on my car.
Can I tell you one thing he has in the shop that needs to go in the trash?
If you say the Lambo,
I was going to say the Lamborghini.
No. There is a set of old Dodge Viper tires sitting in there.
But that's not by my choice.
I know. But they can't be used.
The old man wants to keep them because it's with the vehicle, because it'll keep it original.
Oh my God.
It's
original
pointless.
Tires?
It's pointless. That's really bad. I say that's really bad, but I'm pretty sure I have some tires that need to go to.
Yeah, so Brandon, my dad has, a collection of cars or so, and a lot of it, he likes to keep it originals. For the longest time, it was like pulling teeth. For example, one of the cars we have is an AC Cobra with over 500 horses. And it got to the point where we had 20-something-year-old tires on that, and I refused to drive that car with him. He's like, well, take it out. I'm like, I will not take this car because I cannot risk it blowing out.
Right.
But he wanted to keep it all original. I said, keep them. You can keep them. Why not? I don't know why you would, but we're going to put better tires on it.
Nobody's going to mark you down for having different tires on a car. They don't need to be original. They're unsafe.
I don't know about that.
Nobody's going to mark you down for that.
Like John Terrarian, I've messaged him and asked him about that, and I never got back to him. But I know a lot of the cars he's talked about have actually been like when he's talked about all original barn finds, whatever. It still has the original tires, and they'll sell them with that because there's some people who don't want it changed. And I understand if you want a museum piece, but if you want a driver, you have to change those safety things.
Fine. Is your dad's car ever going to be a museum piece?
He likes to keep it in good condition.
Grant drove it when he was 16.
You've seen him, Jeremy. He keeps it in very good condition.
The cars are in great condition, but
Yeah.
It's like Ferris Bueller. He wipes them with a diaper.
Unless it's going in a museum, it doesn't make sense to keep tires.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Okay, fine. We're gonna ask the last 3 questions now.
Okay.
All right. So these are the deep thinkers.
It's like a genie. You're here with Grant. You gotta make some wishes.
These are the deep ones. Okay. What 3 cars are on your list of you really want to drive someday?
I mean, as far as like production cars,
Doesn't even have
just anything.
I want to drive a trophy truck really bad.
Okay.
Awesome. Really bad.
Yeah, awesome.
Jeremy's giving the high five.
There we go.
That's the number one.
That's awesome.
Like top of the list.
God,
no questions
cool.
asked.
Yeah.
Off-road Thunder.
God, after that,
That was a great game.
I mean, that's it.
That's it. That's really trophy truck.
All 3 times. I want to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
3 times. There you go.
Let's do a 4-wheel drive one, a 2-wheel drive. Let's do a pre-runner. Like
He peaked right there. That was it. You can do Ivan Stewart's. You can do Jeff Gordon's. You can do Robbie Gordon's. Yeah.
Oh man, I drove Fam's Supra once, and that was when it was making 550 horsepower, and it was like not really driving it; it was like kind of fussing around. And so I want to drive that car again, but I want to drive it with
really drive.
You want to drive?
I want to drive that car.
Okay. Yeah, experience it.
Yeah.
You don't strike me as into exotics at all.
I'm not. They don't.
Let
really
me show you a whole new world.
No, stop it. No, totally fine.
I build stuff with more
like
horsepower.
that.
I'm not interested. That's
Fair.
Yeah. No, I mean they're super cool. I mean, if it was going to be
some of them are.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to drive a supercar, it'd probably be a Koenigsegg. Like,
yeah,
they're just so cool.
A new one or like an early one?
Oh, new one. No way. Okay. Ooh, a Noble would be cool though.
That'd be fun. That would actually be really cool.
Yeah.
Pretty
neat.
Because I do like a car that you're driving the car, not something that's going to be driving for you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much that is in a Koenigsegg.
The new ones are more
and
computer. That's
why I say the Noble.
Yeah. So I would kind of shy away from one just for that reason. I don't feel like you're very attached to it.
I think
never driven one, so maybe I'm wrong, but it's just the external feel I get.
The draw for the Koenigsegg is just I just have to imagine they're just so brutally powerful with how light they are. Mm-hmm. I can't even fathom what that car would feel like to drive.
Yeah. If you like to be more of a driver car, like Rob's is, for example, an F40. That's like probably one of the rawest cars you can get.
Yeah.
No power steering. I don't know if it's got actually power brakes with that one. Or just the brakes.
I think maybe some of the later models did.
Yeah. That one I'll have to check, and I'm actually surprised I don't know that.
Right.
But like, you got, that is a driver's car that takes a lot of experience to go fast.
The other thing, though, is to be completely honest with you, I'm not all that interested in going fast. Like,
okay.
I would
perspective.
I'd much rather go sideways. Like, that's more my game. And I guess to that point, if I'd probably somebody's drift car. I don't know, probably someone with a 3-rotor. That'd be super cool.
Maybe
That'd
a Ken Block car.
That Hawkeye Rex would be really cool.
There you go.
But I don't know. I think I'm not a huge fan. I haven't been able to slide anything all-wheel drive with the proper setup for it. So like that's
might be fun to experience.
It would because the ones with open diffs don't behave the same.
Yeah. No, not at all.
it's no. I mean, yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Sure. No, I think an actual like rear-wheel drive, probably something. There was like I don't like RX-8s. I think they're just ugly cars, but there was an RX-8 on the circuit when I was doing Formula D. Well, working in the Formula D arena type area.
Yeah.
There was a 3-rotor RX-8 that was pretty rad.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. All right. What car's a hard no? Somebody walks up to you. Here you go. All you got to do is drive it home. And you're like,
second high five.
Yeah.
Tesla.
You're my man.
Just
walk away from that shit.
Those like the like sedan Teslas. They're just
Model 3.
Yeah, just ugly as hell. Sure, they're super fast. Cool. Don't care. That's it's an ugly car. I've heard the build quality on them is just garbage. Like I'm not interested. Cool.
Much respect.
We broke the PT Cruiser curse.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'd drive a PT Cruiser.
Would you?
They offered that with the SRT4 motor. You know that?
Yeah.
We've
been down that road.
That's the gambler in me though. Like that'd be rad with a lift.
It would be a good gambler car. That'd be pretty funny as shit.
Cruiser?
Huh?
Have you seen the Gambler PT Cruiser?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's Jesse's car. That car's it's not really a PT Cruiser.
That's still buff.
It's on a F250 frame, I think.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It's super cool. It's super cool.
That's totally different. That's not Grandma's PT Cruiser.
Yeah.
That's not the Woody.
Yeah.
No, the Woody bathtub. The bathtub PT Cruiser.
But you know how fun it'd be to have one of those Woody PT Cruisers and have it just look bone stock, but make like 500 horsepower?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just smoke people, huh?
Yeah. I mean, there's options there, I guess, if you want to get somebody else to drive it, put a big motor in it.
That's what makes that one fun, is because it looks like traffic just going down the road.
Nah, I don't think it does. I mean, with the bigger tires and
that's a cool car.
That's a little different.
It kind of even helps because people don't expect it to move,
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so.
Brendon, I gotta know, if the Tesla was a hard no, what's a harder no, that or a Prius?
The Tesla, yeah,
because they're everywhere, dude. The Prius isn't everywhere anymore.
I can drive.
I mean, there's a lot of them. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but the Tesla is every freaking. It's like Starbucks.
I can drive the Prius to Seattle and not worry about it.
That is true.
Yeah.
Quickly, rapidly.
Yeah,
I can flat out.
Yeah, you can put it to the floor and not worry about it.
You can stop at a gas station to fuel it.
That's true.
But
that's very
on
true.
that note, the Prius C, I've driven one of those. That's the second place probably to the Tesla.
Yeah.
That's the most dreadful vehicle I've ever been in. Oh my god!
I figured it'd be close. So
Yeah.
Rivian's a hard 3.
All right, last one. Coolest car related thing we've seen this week.
That's the Supra, man. I shouldn't have gotten into that so early because popping the hood on that car and seeing that setup is just unreal. Like
That's awesome.
Grant and I are fighting over the last
I
one.
know. I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a G-Wagon actually yesterday afternoon. A nice, beautiful white and black 4-door
Little
G-Wagon.
white one.
Nice.
That's different.
Yeah.
Fun fact:
Yeah.
if you own a business, you can write off a G-Wagon
It's true.
because
Why
they're
just a G-Wagon?
because they're heavy enough to be a commercial vehicle.
Really? It was like 10,000 pounds or
I bet
something.
I bet our
6,000
trucks
or
we can.
greater.
6,000?
But
Yeah.
I think
I bet
that
our trucks we can.
so that
That they're might not quite be 6,000.
My truck is 8,100 pounds.
yeah.
81.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's over 6,000 pounds, but that
Yikes.
law is actually changing. I was watching a YouTube video about it. It's changing this year. And now you could write 80%, and then the following year is like 75%, and then I think
That's
it's 50%.
stupid.
But it was, it may still be but that's for what I saw like last month or whatever that, if you buy over 6,000, you could write it off. And that's why a lot of people buy G-Wagons because they're so expensive, and then you could just,
That's
get
cool.
huge tax write-off.
Yeah, well, I don't own a business. This podcast doesn't count.
Okay, make an LLC.
That's why my wife wants one. She wants to start a private practice and buy a G-Wagon.
Oh, get after that. Yeah, that's a nice rig.
So
1, 2, 3, same
Grant
time.
and I both saw this thing.
Yeah.
And I drooled
Cool.
all over this. It's
Toyo Ace? What is it?
It's a Toyota Toyo Ace. It is freaking cool. It was right hand steer. I'm pretty sure the guy that owned it built the box on the back so he could sleep in it. It looked like
camper-esque.
Yeah, it looked like
just all-wheel drive.
What do they call them? A Ghost Overlander or something like that. They're all-wheel drive. Little diesel motor in them, little 4-cylinder diesel, so they get really good
from
mileage.
Another country. We don't make those here, or don't import them.
Well, no, we don't import those new. and it was a right side steer, so it would have had to have come from somewhere else. Yeah,
there's a lot of folks now that are importing similar vehicles. Like Mitsubishi Delica is a popular one. It's like a people carrier.
Yeah, and God, there's a couple of smaller ones too that they build that are very similar with the flat nose on them.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the look of those.
It's Plymouth.
So I want to do a trip on the ferry system out of Everett up to Alaska. So my wife's originally from Southeast, and I was looking at taking the truck up, but because they're so big, it's really expensive. It's like $2,500 just to get up there, right? So I'm like, I wonder if I could find one of those and build it so my dog and I can go up there and take the ferry and like sleep in it and the whole 9 yards. Maybe someday. No, not for $2,500, but it'd be a cool fucking project.
It would be. Yeah, I support that. Go for it.
So I found another thing that was cool this week, Jeremy.
Nice.
And I saw it on the way to the studio.
Yeah.
Me and Rob were just talking about. I don't know what it is though.
Well, it looks a little bit.
It's a Plymouth
or a Plymouth Challenger 4-door,
but it's got like
such a thing.
It's got lights on the top of it, and it's got a.
I didn't notice.
Is it a cop car?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's got lights on top, and it's got a siren on top.
Is it the old Ford Interceptor?
No, it's a Plymouth.
It's a Plymouth.
It's a 4-door Plymouth, but it's got like rusty patina. And you want to pass it to Jeremy? And
it kind of looks like.
I'd love to get your guys' thoughts what it is.
It kind of.
I thought it was a Duster.
It kind of looks like a 68 C10 front end.
Look at that.
It looks like a Challenger front end.
Yeah.
I'm not
weird.
sure what Plymouth. I know
but I saw that and I was like,
Jesus, you're loud.
Sorry.
Yeah.
God damn.
So excited.
I know.
Back away from the mic.
Yeah, stop yelling.
Put the candy down and let the little boy go.
But yeah, I saw that on the way here, on the way to the studio, and I was like, that is one of the coolest cars to see. And I just, even though I was in a rush to get here, I was like, I have to stop, take a picture, and look for a second.
Yeah, I don't remember what Plymouth, because I know the police used Plymouth cars for a while, but I don't remember what model it was.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
Didn't
it's probably an old Plymouth
Duster
from the Dukes of Hazzard? Didn't
I don't remember what that was. It was a
Chrysler
of some kind.
Well, no, saying the police didn't they use that to chase the Dukes?
That might have been a Ford, wasn't it? A Ford?
I don't know that. My Dukes of Hazzard knowledge is a we rusty.
Man, so we're gonna. I haven't seen that since the 80s,
right? And since our internet is really not up to par tonight,
we should post that on our social media and see if people know what that is.
Go for it.
Yeah,
I think you've got access.
What do you think?
I was wondering if it might be a Fury.
Yeah,
a Fury.
That's what I was thinking. Of old Fury 3 or something.
That's I'm looking at 2. There was a 73 that looked almost like that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool that it's got the patina to it too, though.
Yeah,
it was like not a rat rod because it wasn't fully, but
but also rusted. Not completely dead.
Yeah.
Interesting vehicle.
So that was probably the coolest thing.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this thing up. So, Brendon, thank you very much for coming in.
No, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I'd be happy to come back. There's plenty we didn't touch on.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always more projects.
Oh, yeah.
And as your build progresses, too, we want to hear about that and see that. So, yeah.
Well, for the sake of my marriage, I don't see much more progression in the near future.
It'll happen. It just takes time. Just like we touched on that. These builds take time.
That swap over the winter, that was
a rough one.
That was a rough one. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the garage.
Yeah, there has to be some give and take for that for sure.
Yeah.
So good to have you here. So everybody, thanks for listening.
Do you have any social media shout outs you want to give or anything?
Oof. I don't know.
You don't have to.
Buy a BMW and get some M3 parts. We can. There you go. I don't really. I can't say that. Never mind.
Don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah,
that's right.
Check us out on Facebook,
Instagram,
Untitled Car Project, Instagram,
Twitter, Untitled Car Pro.
Oh, you got it right.
Yeah,
good job.
Yoo-hoo. And
we've got a few things out there. I don't know. We do more Facebook and Instagram than anything else. Email us untitledcarproject@gmail.com and hit follow on the podcast.
And reach out to us. We would love to hear about your guys' projects.
Yep. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Check us out on the group. And
it's good hearing from you guys.
Okay. Hit it.
Okay. Stop going to the doors.